All right, I think we are good to go. Let's see how the stream health starting. Stream health is good. And we are live. Hello, good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good whatever time of night or day it happens to be, wherever you happen to be.
Stream health starting. Stream health is good.
Yeah, there we go. I can hear myself. I gotta mute that.
And we are live. Hello, good evening.
All right. So, this evening I'm joined with several friends. If you would all care to introduce yourselves, that would be cool. We start with Anahata, ladies first.
Oh. Yes, I'm AnahataHearts. I do YouTube videos, mostly within somewhat philosophical means, but mostly just sort of life commentary. Basically, I've been described as if Nick and Vernaculus had a love child and pushed her onto YouTube, that would be my channel.
Okay. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hi, my name is Ryan. My Twitter handle is Lord Blasting, and well, I mainly do YouTube as a hobby. I do a Star Trek Online Let's Play, but I haven't been uploading lately. I've been meaning to go back to it, and of course, if I have more time, I'll plan to maybe do a few commentaries as well.
I guess it's my turn, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, what can I say about myself? I'm UnionAerospace. The current things I'm doing right now is basically studying a history degree in my university in Spain, the Universidad Complutense de Madrid, as you would call it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's the only interesting thing I'm doing right now. Otherwise, university life is so tough that it barely leaves me time for doing stuff like playing or something like that, so I'm not big in the YouTube scene yet.
All right.
So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. I almost got another degree in history, but I decided I'd been in university long enough by that point in time, so I fucked off that last semester I was there and didn't actually do very well in my history classes.
Well, it all depends on whatever they teach you. There are some assignments in my college that I find particularly interesting. Others, I just roll my eyes out.
These were interesting enough courses, but I just kind of lost interest somewhere about midway through the semester, and then I wound up spending most of that semester rather full of scotch, sitting in front of an electric guitar amplifier practicing my guitar.
Yeah, I dropped out of a BA program in psychology because they kept sending me things about a mandatory diversity seminar.
Oh, joy.
I decided they could go fuck themselves.
Oh my god.
You tell me something's mandatory, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. You tell me it's going to be a diversity seminar, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself by not saying anything and just dropping out.
Yeah, sometimes I think in my college people have gone insane also.
Insanity is spreading, I think.
It seems to be a common thing.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was expecting that it was gonna be great, and then this shit happened.
Oh, indeed.
Well, fortunately, when I was in school, it was before all this weird shit got started with trigger warnings and safe spaces and things like that. So, I mean, it's really strange. I don't think that a university is supposed to be a daycare.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Of course, fortunately, we don't have these safe spaces yet. Yet in my college. We don't have them yet, so...
Good.
Although there's heavy presence of very activist movement, very highly activist movements in my college also. Which some of them make me roll my eyes, as I've said once again.
I've heard from some people in Spain and Portugal that the SJW trend is starting to increase over there.
It's starting to pick up.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Yes and no, I'd say it. Mostly because I'd like to offer my input because I'm living there in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
There's current point in which one of the major radio programs of Spain, which is the Cadena Ser, as we call it, started to push an idea called egalitarian urbanism.
Huh.
Egalitarian urbanism?
Basically, some people are trying to say that all of the cities so far built were built specifically for men. So it was time to build cities specifically for women.
Okay. That sounds really strange.
I'm really sorry, but when my father told me about it, I'm like, how the fuck is that supposed to look? How the fuck is that supposed to look? I don't even know. Thing is, it's very easy to label something here called as an SJW. I'm gonna say it in the mocking way because I just hate the yeah. But there's common point in which this common point is because the rise of that trend comes from one thing. Spain is the only country in which fascist dictatorship has actually prevailed.
Really?
After World War II, all of the fascist dictatorships disappeared in Europe, except one. In
Franco, yeah.
For 36 years, we've lived under our military regime. Now it's only normal that after all of that, there's a hard swing to the other side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. So that was Francisco Franco. He was dictator of Spain. What did he die in, 74, 75?
1975.
Yeah.
1975. It took 3 years more in order to tear down the regime, as you'd call it. Although it wasn't more of a tear down, it was more of a transition, as you call it.
Mm-hmm.
Although sometimes they call me my inner cynical, but sometimes I feel that it should have just been torn down. Everything should have just been torn down. Because this country, holy fucking shit, this country.
Spain is a country I can say I don't know a single fucking thing about other than, like, where it is.
Well, where would you like me to begin, then?
Well, do you guys still do the Reign of the Bulls?
The
yeah.
Bulls thing. Yes, it's still a thing. It's still a thing. And it's still financed by the government.
Huh.
It's considered a cultural heritage on my country, so...
Yeah, like a cultural festival.
It's a cultural festival at this point. I may disagree with it. In fact, I do disagree with it. But I'm not gonna be storming in the middle of bull run, or whatever you call it, and try to sabotage the whole event or something like that. And
well, how would you even try to sabotage that? You have bulls running around. It'd be bad news.
I'm not even sure. Also, yes, I know that Bull Run is a location in the United States.
Is it?
Yeah, the 2 battles of Bull Run. The 2 battles of Bull Run. Yes, I'm studying American history too.
Oh, cool. You probably know more than I do then.
Battles of Manassas or Bull Run, yes, from the American Civil War, also known as the War Between the States, the War of Northern Aggression, and the War for Southern Independence, depending on who you talk to.
Of course. Well, I'm interested in this subject because I have 2 games of the Civil War on Steam. And just for shits and giggles, I always went with the South.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, not always. I tested once the campaign with the South and then with the North. But I always wanted to go South first because I'm like, hey, what could have happened if things went in a different way?
Yeah, that speculative history is always entertaining.
Speculative history is one of the shits I always love.
Some of my favorite stories are alternative history sort of things, like like the whole thing having to do with Wolfenstein, if the Nazis won, sort of thing. That whole thing.
Oh, Wolfenstein: A New Order. What a fantastic one! That was a fantastic game, and then the sequel came out and shit all over it. I'm really sorry, but I was one of the suckers who pre-ordered Wolfenstein 2.
That was one of the only FPS games that I played for any length of time. I got the original one back in the early 90s, I guess. And that was back when DOS 5 and DOS 6 were the operating systems.
Yeah, the idea of Wolfenstein is basically the same shit. Nazis, but with ultra wacky stuff.
I still absolutely love Mecha Hitler. I think
Mecha Hitler is amazing.
Yeah.
Anyone talks shit about Mecha Hitler, come at me, bro.
For real.
Like, I guess, like, you play to make America Nazi-free again, like.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You play as a Polak? trying to make America Nazi-free.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when they tried to link to fucking Reset Era, out of all things.
Oh.
There's an interesting series of books, and I forget now everything about names and titles, but one of the books in the series has the Bloody Red Baron is a vampire, and it's all about vampires throughout European history, in the entire series. But one of them is the Bloody Red Baron, and he's a vampire, so it's kind of an interesting tale.
Well, I was never much into vampires anyways. Well, not yet. The only vampires I actually know come from the games I play. One of them I call him Manfred the Manchild.
I grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and reading Anne Rice novels and all of that, so...
Yeah, like... And then you hear, like, the more recent edition where with sparkles and rooting...
Those aren't vampires. Those are fanged fairies. Thank you very much.
Oh.
When I was 7 years old, I had a life-sized poster of Bela Lugosi as Dracula on my bedroom wall.
Oh, I love that.
When I was 7 years old, I didn't even know what I was doing with 7 years old. Oh yeah, playing Mario.
Yeah, I was probably playing video games. That was about right.
Yeah, actually, my first video game ever was Doom, actually.
Huh.
Yes, I had a special childhood. I had a really special childhood, mostly because my father actually played that game in his office, when there was free time, of course.
My father played a lot of Doom. He wouldn't let me play it when I was a kid, but he played a lot of that. Diablo 1, too. He played a bit of that.
My father thought that all the video games were satanic. He called them Devil Machine.
Devil Machine?
Yeah.
My dad tried to pull that with Magic the Gathering, and I was just like, okay, well, I don't know, do you want me to throw this deck of cards at you and see what the fuck happens? Like, don't even.
Well, I did manage to get him to play Atari with me a little bit, though.
I'm starting to feel old for some reason.
The first game I ever played was Duck Hunt, so that might date me a little.
Duck Hunt is a classic.
First video game I played was Pong, the original Pong.
1978 or something?
It was back in the 70s. I couldn't tell you the exact year. My brother had this Atari system, one of the original ones that were released to the public in the United States back in the 70s. So whenever I went to visit him, I would always play that game. Space Invaders.
Pong was released in 1972.
Yep, I was way off.
I don't think he had one that early.
Yeah, I believe... sorry, go ahead. I believe the first game I played was actually on the original NES. It comes with a cartridge that contains both Super Mario and Duck Hunt on it.
Duck Hunt, I remember that one too.
Yeah, that was the one that my brother had, because my brother's about 13 years older than me, so He had that system, and that particular cart was the one that I actually played Duck Hunt on.
My God.
I was hot garbage at Mario, though, and I still can't play any 2D Marios without completely failing at it.
Speaking of all, this thing's just starting to make me feel really old for some reason.
I'm going to be 30 this year, so I'm starting to feel like, okay, alright, we're getting to a point here. With my lifestyle, I'm at middle age at this point. So.
Oh, you guys, come on.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
You're all kids, honestly. I remember, I'm older than Star Trek.
You're older than Star Trek.
Yes, I am.
Well, I do have to say, you look very good for your age. So.
Well, that's because I avoid the sun and drink blood.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's the same reason why anytime I go out, like, the last time I traveled up north, I was talking to the bus driver, and he was just like, how old are you? What, like 20, 22, 23? And I'm like, oh, bless your heart.
I still get carded occasionally when I buy alcohol, and I'm always like, thank you.
Well then.
Yeah, well, here in the state of Connecticut, they have to card you if you look under 40, and I look under 30, apparently, so, yeah, I get carded unless they know me.
I can see what you mean there.
Yeah, like they say I look pretty young for my age, and sometimes I get carded when I buy alcohol.
What's the drinking age over there?
Oh, in Canada, it's 19.
19. Okay.
18 here.
Yeah, I know. Most of Europe is 18. I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I was in Europe, I was drinking. I was 15. I would just go in and order stuff, and I guess they thought I was old enough to drink because they never asked any questions and gave me booze.
Or maybe it was at the time when they just really don't enforce the laws that much.
Now it's a sign of the other times of enforcing all that shit in a really exaggerated way. Also, I gotta ask, have you guys heard about the thing of Count Dankula?
What about
Who
him?
hasn't?
What about
Who hasn't?
Dude, what did he do today?
Not today, but I was watching a video of a guy called Jonathan Pye. I'm not sure who that man is.
Jonathan Pye,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
he's a comedian.
Yes, he's a stand-up comedian / YouTube comedian.
Mm-hmm.
But when we screamed at the top of his lungs to the Scottish tribunal, it's
Yes.
a joke, you fucking cunts.
Yes, apparently, according to Jonathan Pye's Twitter, he may actually be currently under investigation by the police.
Yeah.
for-
He
Yes, to the Scottish court.
is currently under investigation.
And I've actually looked into it. There's more than one UK comedian currently either being sued or undergoing some sort of litigation due to jokes. Just jokes in general, offensive jokes. So,
I'm really sorry, but
apparently this is a thing.
when I hear that, I'm like, God, what the fuck has happened to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, it's
Well,
crazy.
I look at it as an American, knowing like the history of comedy here in the U.S. and where it started with Lenny Bruce, fucking
Lenny
decades
Bruce,
ago.
yeah.
And we look at it just like, oh my god, are you fucking serious?
At this point, I'm gonna start to think that John Cleese is gonna be on a fucking tribunal too.
Right? He's gonna get like indicted on some shit.
Say, like, I'm actually one time on Twitter, I actually, not too long ago, actually, like, photoshopped JF's face onto a pug. I'm wondering, like, will I get any kind of legal action against me for it? Like,
I really gotta say, but if that thing keeps going just for the kicks and giggles, I'm gonna go there and be like, if I'm gonna be jailed in the United Kingdom, fuck it, I'm gonna go in style. Come in the machine.
He really did. It was great. It was springtime for Hitler.
Oh my.
This is me miming fucking the Von Traps.
I did a video on the Dankula thing too. I posted it there in the voice text channel, and here for the people outside, I'll post it in the live chat.
I did one too. I should I'll grab mine.
Yeah, I saw yours. I shared it out on Twitter, I think, and I certainly put it in the in my Discord here.
Okay, then let me check.
I think basically everybody did a video on the thing. I have a mega playlist on YouTube right now of every time I see a Dankula video go up, or at least something addressing that that has reached over 1,000 views at least. I've stuck it in that one playlist, and it's a fucking sizable playlist at this point.
All for a fucking buck.
Let's see, it's up to 49 videos in this. Yeah.
There's Anna's video also, and let me throw it out here for the live chat.
Yeah. Also, I posted that tweet of my own Nazi pud on the text chat. Like,
oh, I'd have to check.
I did see quite a few of those videos of people having their pets do the thing.
There actually was a precedent in. There was a case in Finland. I'm not sure if you heard about that.
Yeah, I talked about that.
Yep. In which a Finnish couple made their dog do a Nazi salute. The Nazis went to investigate, and they didn't press charges in the end. Which makes me think that apparently the Nazis are more tolerant than the fucking Scottish criminalist.
well, actually, I guess it depends on what Nazi, because like JF actually did say he wants to throw the book at Dankula. That's mostly because like not long ago Dankula made a bunch of jokes about him.
Who?
No.
You know, JF Garapi, like.
Gary P.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Who?
He's a white. Yeah.
No, I know who JF is.
Okay.
Who's that guy? Sorry, I'm sorry if I seem ignorant, but who is that guy?
Oh, on the voice text I had.
Oh, you mean the person who apparently Andy Worski is so insufferable that this fucking what is he? Some sort of ethno-purist? What's his deal?
He's an white nationalist, wants an ethno state. Blah blah blah. He's a really strange guy.
So this fucking bottom feeding troglodyte can't even stand Andy Worski.
Bottom feeding troglodyte. Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down.
Not to mention that Jeff is also exactly a villain from an episode of Law and Order, like SVU.
Oh yeah, they leveled up.
Oh, you threw the SVU in there. Oh.
Hey, they leveled up.
Shit.
I'm gonna remember that episode for decades.
Oh, speaking of which, I think if they do make an episode of SVU based on JF, Logan Paul would be perfect for that role. Like,
yes, cast Logan Paul, absolutely.
Absolutely. But hey, at least you got your red channel on it. Red fucking channel. Holy fucking shit. When I saw that, I was like, hold on, is this all out of a fucking serious? Oh, but, well, so what can we say? We have the thing of Count Dankula, we have Theresa Mayhem running around the place. Oh my god, sometimes I think the world has gone insane.
I say it got insane when Lacey Green became the voice of reason.
When who?
Well, Lacey Green was never even that bad.
Yeah, I never had a real issue with Lacey. She always seemed at least honest about what she was saying, and
she did get a little nutty with the whole feminism thing, but at least she was still in the sex positive realm of feminism. Apparently, we've gone full fucking Dworkenite at this point.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm talking about, in the past, Lacey Green actually did DMCA people just because of showing her picture,
Yeah, that was Roaming Millennial, wasn't it?
Well, fucking... And all I wanted was to play video games.
Well, hopefully Ray Gun can inject some reason into her.
All I wanted was to play video games. And 2018 is the year in which Jack fucking Thompson returned. You didn't hear what he had to say?
No.
No.
Well, you remember that Jack Thompson was the guy who was calling for censorship of video games because they were provoking violence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Way back when?
The 90s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
wasn't
2018.
many, but yeah.
2018. He showed up again, and you guys think that he changed his opinion in anything?
No.
Nope. Nope. No. But worst of that, I heard he teamed up with a guy called Colonel Dave Grossman. And I don't know who Dave Grossman is, but I've been digging a bit on that guy, and I'm sorry, but for being a colonel, he seems shady as fuck. He seems shady as fuck, with claims of...
Is it just me, or are we just really just reliving? Because I'm old enough to remember at least part of it. No, it wasn't. Fuck off.
Yeah. I'm not sure who exactly Dave Grossman is, but the little bits I'm seeing, I'm like, for example, why would the army use video games in order to desensitize soldiers and turn them into killing machines?
Either video games make people just lethal killing machines, or people who play video games are lazy sacks of shit that live in their mother's basement. You cannot have both.
You cannot have both. But I love when the argument is playing video games for everything.
Yeah, like...
I play video games so I don't murder people, so...
Yeah.
Don't worry. I've heard a lot of things about me too, in that regard.
Gotta get that violent urge out somehow, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, that reminds me of something interesting. I think, like, Penn and Teller, they did an episode of Bullshit trying to debunk, like, these claims that video game causes violence. And, of course, they actually, like, interviewed, like, this... They actually met up with this kid who likes to play, like, all these, like, violent video games, like, the really violent stuff, like Grand Theft Auto and Mortal Kombat. And, of course, they did an experiment by they take him to a shooting range and have him shoot an actual gun and see his reaction. Of course, like, after the kid shooted, like, keep in mind that this kid he didn't, like, hit anyone. He didn't try anyone or kill anyone, but after he was starting crying because when you think about it, like, a video game is extremely different from real life.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I play a copious amount of Fallout New Vegas specifically. If I'm having a bad day, I'll log into my PlayStation. I will play the Fallout New Vegas, and I will exterminate all of the Mojave.
If I have a bad day, what I do is turn up Brutal Doom and just rip and tear.
Oh, Brutal Doom. Back when I was doing Let's Play, that was the most popular fucking on my channel at the time, was us doing Brutal Doom.
Brutal Doom is, how do you call it? It's not old Doom, but hey, I fucking love it.
We had Brutal Doom with the Wolfenstein mod on, so
With the
it was fun.
Brutal Wolfenstein?
Yeah, basically it was Doom, but it had the Wolfenstein mod plus the I think it was the PSX soundtrack.
Oh, it's because there's a thing called Brutal Wolfenstein now. Someone is actually making a Brutal Wolfenstein.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, to me it's really cool seeing that. Oh. Well, Wolfenstein is one of those things I actually enjoyed back in the day. Well, I didn't play much of the 3D, only the once I completed the 6 ones, and I'm really sorry, but it was a prototype of FPS back in the day.
Mm. Well, I'm not garbage at FPS myself, so...
Yeah, you only had 3 weapons in the 3D game of Wolfenstein.
Mm.
The pistol, the MP40, and the chain gun. That's it. But hey, it was actually great.
The only FPS I was ever good at was old fucking Counter-Strike way back in the day.
Old Counter-Strike. Wow. That's some years right now. But that's actually, I mean, Counter-Strike is still popular.
Yeah, well, because it's a pretty solid fucking game.
It is. I'm not sure what the complaints of Global Offensive is about. If anyone does know about it and can explain it to me, Or not really. Mostly because, but the thing is, even if I did love the Wolfenstein franchise, I will admit that I shouldn't. I still feel guilty about the whole thing of Wolfenstein 2, for instance. Because there's just a lot of things in that game in which I'm like, why did you guys do it in this way? For example, am I allowed to post an image to you guys?
Sure.
Sure.
It's only the soul of the game is not only the gameplay; it's also the design and such. Art design and such also is a very important thing. So let me dig up something here. Where can I post the image? In the main channel?
Yeah,
the atrium?
The atrium will be fine.
Okay then. So this I'm gonna post in a moment. And this is the menu of Wolfenstein: The New Order. Look at this. It's fucking amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Looks fucking great.
Nice.
It looks fucking great.
I like the contrast between the monochrome and the red background.
Exactly. Now, this is a Wolfenstein 2 menu.
Oh my
What the
goodness.
fuck?
Oh,
What
that's
the shit?
horrible.
What the actual fuck?
What the shit is that?
That is
That's-
horrible. That's what that is.
Yeah, that looks like something you'd make in fucking Unity. What shit?
Like it just kind of it's like somebody just maybe
You
just
have a
threw on a
bunch
napkin.
of goddamn cock gobblers. Like what? What?
This is the menu with the new things with the expanded options. Still looks fucking atrocious.
Expanded. Okay, hold on. Let me.
With fold unlock.
Are you? That is fucking lazy. That is
Yeah.
somebody came in. They did the menu last. I swear they did the menu last. They had 5 minutes before go time, and just threw the shit together in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Now, another thing. The collectibles in Wolfenstein: The New Order came with the following: the image plus a description, in which described what the image was doing, right? How they fucking did it, what was going on, and such. That is such a beautiful touch. In Wolfenstein 2, nothing. You only get the image.
That's really sad.
You only get the concept art. That's it.
Man, like what? Like they seem like be kind of a lot of stuff. Like
And you see how all of these design choices are starting to tie a noose around the game's throat and hanging it open like a fucking cord.
Yeah.
And not only 3 plot choices. The thing that also killed my interest in the game, almost. And I'm not sure what was the thing that definitely killed it to me. The plot. The plot itself, well, you'd think it will be cheesy and such, right? Because hey, Wolfenstein doesn't have the best of plots.
Well, as somebody who watches a lot of Let's Play, what's really telling to me is that there is not a lot of Let's Play going on for Wolfenstein 2.
Yeah, it's really telling in that regard.
If it's not lucrative enough for the people who do Let's Play to actually even bother with it,
So for example,
there's something going on.
here's the thing that got me my eyes rolling. In the fucking intro, you get introduced to BJ's childhood. So, sounds really neat, right?
Yeah.
Then
In
we have the mother, in which they overemphasize that she's Jewish. And I mean, they gotta say that she's Jewish.
We already knew Blazkowicz was a Polish Jew. Like, we already knew that.
We already knew that. We didn't need it for it shoved in our face. And here comes the father. Here comes the father. He's the the most egregious example of a straw man I have ever seen in my life.
Oh?
He's a hate sink. That's what he is.
Mm.
A Helsing?
No, a Helsing, no. Sorry for my fucking English. A hate sink. And it just...
Saint?
The hate sink is basically
Sink.
a character in which he exists there only to be hated.
Okay.
So basically, like a mustache-wearing villain, right?
He has a fucking mustache.
Yeah, he's
like-
he's Snidely Whiplash tying to the damsel in the tracks. Like,
Kind of
Oh,
like Colonel
I mean,
Haki.
really, like he even have the snidely whiplash-shaped mustache, like.
Like this guy abuses.
pencil curl.
He abuses BJ. He abuses BJ. He abuses the mother because she's a Jew. He hates blacks.
Why would you marry the bitch and then have a kid with? If you don't like Jews, was that a hate fuck that you did not anticipate? Like,
And in order to draw the whole thing, draw the whole point in, he grabs BJ, ties a fucking shotgun in his hand, and forces him to shoot his dog.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, that's very fucked up. Like,
Very edgy.
that seems
right?
a little gratuitous.
That's very edgy, isn't it?
Seems a bit much.
yeah.
Now, and second plot point in which I facepalmed hard. You remember when BJ and the Resistance managed to capture a Nazi submarine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the first game, they took a submarine. Well, not a single submarine. The Eva Hammer,
Mm.
which was the pride of the Nazi fleet, and they sailed away with it. Well, apparently, for 4 months, the remnants of the Nazi crew hid themselves in a secret compartment and were transmitting signals for Engel's flying fortress to find them. I'm sorry if I'm overly bitching in that regard.
No, absolutely no. You're fine.
But the problem is this. Didn't you guys have 4 fucking months to check the whole submarine up and down in case there was a fucking secret compartment?
Like, I think a more believable story is like maybe one of them among them is actually a Nazi spy, and that would be a more believable plot point than a secret compartment in a compact submarine for 4 months. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? How the fuck did the crew survive 4 months in that thing? Were they fucking eating their own shit or something?
We do have a hate sink in Star Trek Online for those of us who are Romulan players, but he is actually has something to do with the story besides just being an object of hatred. That is Colonel Hakiv, the head of the Tal Shiar. And his name is actually, if you look at it closely, it's in Rihan, which is the language of the Romulans, Rihan. It's actually Hakiv, which means stupidly.
Oh, well.
Well, I haven't played the Romulans yet myself.
Oh, you need
And
to
he's
play
the same-
Romulan.
He's a hate sink?
Yeah, he's complete mustachioed villain. He's like, tell them about Hakiv, Ryan.
basically, like, actually, like, he actually was originally meant to be a part of the feature episode series Cloaked Intentions. Like, this was before they had the Roman faction, and of course, like, when they included Roman faction, like, they wanted to expand that cube because they needed a villain that has absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Like,
Yeah, absolutely no redeeming qualities. One of the greatest examples of catharsis in the game is when I shot Hakiv in the face.
Had fun with it, eh?
Yeah, that was great.
Well,
I'm still waiting for us to get a chance to kill Sela, though. Oh my god, I want her head for the mantelpiece over my fireplace in the starbase.
And then not sure because I'm pretty sure that they resolved like pretty much all the story arc with Sela there. Since
I don't know, man. She got a B4 Data come in to visit her with a holographic projection, and you know what she did with a pad to Gaius Select. What was his name? Yeah, Gaius Salon. So I mean, she's got that holographic projecting device there, and an android with a positronic brain. I think she can get out.
Yeah, I guess maybe they kind of left that open just because they want to use her again. Because really, in Star Trek Online, they use Denise Crosby a lot.
Well, no. The thing is, when I hear you guys talking about Star Trek, I gotta say one thing. I barely know about it, and I'm trying to get into it. So, is there anything worthwhile out of the whole Star Trek universe?
All of it.
Much?
All of it.
All of it, yeah.
All of it. Every last thing. Except for
the first two episodes of Discovery.
Arguably, some people like Enterprise. I personally don't. And the newest, the Star Trek Discovery, or what STD, it's hot garbage from what I've seen.
Well, I actually seen the full thing. I'll say that the first two episodes is garbage, but the rest is actually
Did they pick up eventually?
Yeah, it did. It actually did got a little better. The funny thing is, people are saying that the Klingons are Trump supporters, but when I watch it, I actually really don't see it.
I think
no, the Klingons are just being fucking Klingons.
This thing about the new series getting better as it goes on. I mean, if you look back at the Next Generation, the first 2 seasons of that were absolute dreck. There were a few gems in here and there, but it seems to me like the cast did not believe that the series was going to last very long, and so they didn't want to invest too much in it.
They didn't really try.
Right. Yeah. So the first 2 seasons, yeah, I'm not really impressed, but it did get better as it went on. But yeah,
when it
absolutely.
Comes to Star Trek, if I want to introduce anybody to Star Trek, I always give them vanilla original Star Trek and I forget the name of the episode, but the triple episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just so lighthearted and fun.
The Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic.
So, a question to you Trekkies. I think the term is right. Trekkies?
No, I'm a Trekker.
Well, Trekkers.
I'm a Star Trek fan. I refuse to allow myself... Just like I'm a Doctor fan, I am not a Whovian.
Well, question to Trekkers, or fans of Star Trek, or however I need to say it. What's wrong with Star Trek Discovery? I want to know your reasoning.
Well, I haven't actually watched any of it because I can't see paying a subscription fee just to watch one show, so I'm waiting for the DVDs to come out.
I think they announced it's coming to Netflix, so if you already got a Netflix subscription, you can watch that.
No, I will get the DVDs anyways, so I'm gonna just wait for the DVDs.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the first 2 episodes were kind of, slow and tedious. That's all I'm going to say,
Yeah, the only thing I knew is that this girl that appeared in The Walking Dead showed up.
The only exposure I've had to STD at this point is Jeff did those reviews on the first couple of episodes, I think it was, on his alternate channel, and he kind of tore them apart, and I could totally see from his standpoint where those issues definitely were. But from my understanding, the most of the reviews I've gotten is that after that point, it does pick up and actually become interesting. And most of the problems with the buzz around it is generally just ignore people talking about it and just watch the fucking show, from what I heard. Because if people talking about it try to insert their own agendas and their own opinions into it, and it's really not that fucking deep. It's a Star Trek show.
Of course.
Yeah, because I did mention like people saying that the Klingons are a metaphor for council quarters, and I actually say that I see them and I don't see it at all. Like,
yeah, I heard that, and even in from what I saw in Jeff's reviews from the first few episodes, it was just like, no, they're just Klingons. They're like slightly badly written Klingons at the moment, but they're still Klingons.
Like, I'm thinking like if anything, like the Klingons in Discovery are more of a metaphor for Islamic terrorists, if anything. Like,
possibly.
Well, one of the theories that I heard, there's a video on it somewhere on YouTube, is that the Discovery, the ship itself, is a Section 31 scheme, and that's why we don't hear anything about it later in later series. And that actually has some plausibility. I don't know. Ryan said that one of the theories was confirmed toward the end of the first season. I don't know if that's the one or not.
Oh, actually, I'm saying that there are multiple fan theories that were confirmed.
All I know is that in that show, the Earth Empire shows up again.
Yeah, there's actually another fan theory related to the mirror universe that turned out to be true.
Oh.
See, like, I'm just saying, like, see, like, that's actually what the one theory I thought was true, but it turns out, like, other fan theories came up, and it turns out those ones were true, like...
Long live the Earth Empire!
See, yeah, like, I wonder, like, is that, like, the entire plan and all along, or did they just go in on the internet and see all these fan theories and say, hey, that'll be good to incorporate it?
Hey, my friend, anything is better than Star Wars Episode 8 at this point.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I did like The Last Jedi.
Oh, well, I'm not gonna diss it because well,
I still haven't seen The Last Jedi. I've heard very fucking mixed reviews. Two people that I know that are diehard Star Wars fans basically just told me, like, hey, it's a Star Wars movie. Like, so I don't know how to actually feel about it until I actually watch it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. How about we keep that for ourselves then? We're not gonna spoil that.
Well, I don't give a shit about spoilers. I'm not one of those kind of people. Actually, like, I'll watch it and still be amazed by it when I see it.
Actually, I do have one criticism of The Last Jedi is it might have to do with the fact that both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi was done by different directors, but because of that, I think there might be like some kind of like you don't get a sense of story cohesion between the two movies, but the movie itself, yeah, like see, like I think that what most fans would want, like some kind of like some sort of consistency, which is actually a mistake on like Disney's fault for having like two different directors with different styles and maybe possibly not much communication between them.
That can be a problem in filmmaking, absolutely.
It can be a problem. Perfectly.
I did think that Sargon's review of this newest movie was pretty well spot on.
But for example,
Sargon's thing was like a 30-minute video on Last Jedi.
It's basically, he says that the theme of the movie is women are right even when they're wrong.
My favorite thing after The Last Jedi came out, the people on 4chan who did the edit, which many news outlets tried to claim it was a womenless edit, and it was some sort of huge sexist thing, but for the people that I saw that were actually a part of the edit said that it was actually just editing out all of the things that didn't make fucking sense. Which turned it into like a 40-minute movie.
One of the things that didn't make sense, I posted them on the Atrium.
There was one thing that a person said to me, glaring thing, which was there was some scene in The Last Jedi, like, granted, I still haven't seen it, but there was a scene where there was some sort of prank phone call where it seemed like it was out of place for something like a Star Wars movie.
It's Marvel humor, basically. Marvel humor.
Yeah, like, they said it would be something that would be placed in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
It's a your mama joke.
Yeah, like it was actually pretty close to the beginning. Like I think that's kind of more like Ryan Johnson's style.
And there was also Asian Mick What's-Her-Tits, which apparently was not interesting, according to the general gist that I've gotten from most of my personal friends.
You mean Rose?
Yeah, whatever her name was, the Asian chick that's not a...
See, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this. Apparently, Rose, the actress of Rose, was picked in order to appeal to the Chinese market. But
yeah, and apparently, from my understanding, the Chinese virtually...
Problem is, she's Vietnamese.
Yeah, there's a fucking... Oh my god.
She's Vietnamese. Vietnam and China.
Asians aren't all the same, America.
Vietnam and China have a very grudging story together.
They kind of have some issues with one another.
Yeah, do you know the Dwarves of Warhammer having a Book of Grudges? Well, Vietnam and China have respected Book of Grudges on each other.
Oh, well.
Yeah, like actually, it's actually pretty common between like Asian cultures have like a book of grudges. Like did you know? Like, actually, it is actually like early art concept for Warcraft, but they have like Pandarans, which are panda people in samurai armor, and that it actually caused a controversy.
Yes, World of Warcraft for a very long time would not introduce the Pandarans because of the quote-unquote Chinese gold farmers. And it was apparently racist.
Oh my.
That's racist! Because Chinese people and gold farming, which apparently it's mostly an American history racism thing.
The thing is,
I don't know.
American scholars view race relations as if the U.S. race relations applied everywhere.
Oh no, absolutely. The more that I learn about other cultures, the more that I realize that very goddamn central on themselves. Like,
and
the U.S. is so totally like it's. Okay, it's 10:09 p.m. on the East Coast in the U.S. right now, and therefore everywhere. Who gives a shit? Like,
the thing is, there's also a recently new thing what happened. You guys remember the BBC, right?
Yes.
You know the BBC. There was a miniseries called Troy, Fall of a City. So far so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a taxpayer money-funded miniseries. And what does it come out of it? Black Zeus and Black Achilles.
Black Achilles?
Yep.
Well, people from the Mediterranean do generally have darker skin compared to the rest of Europe. Like, I guess maybe it's not too far off.
Wasn't there a whole thing where they were trying to do... And they wanted to cast like a black actress or something like that. And that literally makes no sense because nobody in all of the history of the Franks or the French has been black.
Didn't they cast a black... Sorry, I'm going to say like... I'm thinking there's a show called Merlin, and didn't they cast a black actress to play Guinevere?
Yeah, no, that's Anglo. Please don't.
The thing is, there's sources coming from ancient Greece describing Achilles with blonde hair. That's the only thing we know about Achilles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and blonde hair is generally a Caucasian trait.
Well, as far as I know, I think so. As far as I know, I'm not sure, but if you say that, probably it's true. Probably.
See, they do this shit, and it's part of the reason why I don't necessarily blame the alt-right for their complaints.
I cannot blame them for the rice.
I cannot blame them for their, but at the same time, they take it a bit far.
They take it a lot too far. I mean, some of their complaints,
far.
I think, some of their complaints may be worth considering, certainly. The one thing that really pisses me off is Nick Fury. Now, I love the guy that plays the Black Nick Fury, but Nick Fury is a white guy with an eye patch who smokes cigars. He was in World War II. He led a team of commandos. I've got some of those comics. I bought them back in the 70s.
There
Fury
is
and the
the
Howling
ultimate
Commandos.
Nick Fury.
Yeah, it's
That was black.
film's a different continuity. So.
But at the same time, yes, they're using a certain line of comic, or at least a certain line of comic universe in one instance with these movies, and then just sort of inserting Nick Fury from a different universe into those movies and just trying to make it cohesive.
Right, and that's
So I get the bitch with that.
That's the reason I don't make a huge deal out of it, because, you know, it is, like with any kind of legendary story, it can change over time. And I would say that the Marvel Comics universe is part of what will eventually become American culture. I don't think America has its own culture yet. I think we have still a number of different cultures. One society.
We're kind of a mishmash.
One society, but that melting pot thing is just propaganda, nationalistic propaganda, because, I mean, you go to Louisiana, you've got Cajun, French culture. Throughout the Southwest, any major city has a barrio, and the Southwest and Texas have Hispanic communities. You've got Chinatown in San Francisco. You've got Chinatown in New York City. There's at least one other Chinatown. I think it's in Seattle. I forget. You've got Italian Americans in Brooklyn. You've got Italian Americans in northern New Jersey and in Chicago. You've got a Greek community in Chicago. You have.
Oh, we've got Italian Americans up in the area too.
You've got the Ashkenazic Jewish community in Flushing and Queens. You know, so Gaelic was still spoken in North Carolina until the beginning of the 20th century. There are vestiges of Broad Scots language throughout Southern American English. You know, so, I mean, we don't have one culture. We have a bunch of different cultures. And I didn't even mention the Native American cultures. I mean, there are those as well.
There's a vast amount of those.
Yeah.
But those don't count, I think. Yeah.
Well, they don't count for anybody who cares.
Now, hey, I'm Cherokee enough to live on a reservation.
I don't know if I'm enough. I'm going to have to get tested. My great-great-grandparents, I think, were full-blooded. So it's recent enough. Yeah.
You have to be 1/8 to live on the reservation, and I have 1/16 from each side of my family.
Well, like I said, I'll have to look into it. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. America, I feel like the culture kind of regional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that as well.
Even within the South, if you break up the South between the Southwest, the area around Texas and Texas itself, and the eastern South, it's very different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's definitely a difference there with the regions, and that's one of the reasons that I think we need to preserve the Electoral College and not have just the presidential election be a popularity contest, because, you know, if we did that, it would just be the 5 or 6 largest cities in the nation that would be selecting the president. And what about the fact that people in coastal plains and swamp areas have different needs and concerns than people in desert areas, and people in wooded areas, people in mountain areas, people in the Pacific Northwest with the temperate rainforest, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are different concerns and different needs for these different regions.
I used to be very against the Electoral College until I started getting on a certain side of the gun debate. I'm not anti-gun. I'm from Connecticut. We had the shooting with the kids, with the young kids, and most of the people in Connecticut went very, very, very super goddamn left with that. And I'm one of those kind of people where I look at it like, okay, guns are a tool. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. It might be a mental health issue. It's a nuanced thing. But looking at that and looking at the complaints that people that live in the middle of fucking nowhere have with the gun debate, where it'll take like an hour for the cops to get there, and meanwhile, if they don't have a gun, they're dead. I looked at it from that standpoint and looked at the Electoral College and went, no, I get it now. Because these people need to have an actual voice, and if you put it from a popularity contest or the popular vote, then yeah, absolutely, the coastal states that have most of the population, which is typical of just humans throughout history, like being on the coasts of things and being closer to where the water is, as far as trade is concerned. Yeah, no, absolutely, I get where the Electoral College is probably the better option out of doing the popular vote.
Well, I live in an area which was formerly a very agricultural community, and as time has gone by, with people moving out of the community and off to, cities and so forth, so they can get jobs, it's very quickly now devolving back into wilderness. I live within sight of national forest. We have black bears, we have cougars or mountain lions, whatever you want to call them. We have bobcats. We have various pest animals like armadillos and raccoons and skunks and possum. Yeah, they just come out here and dig up the yard and shit like that. And then about an hour and a half across the mountains is a state penitentiary. People do escape occasionally. I'm a single middle-aged woman, disabled, who lives alone, and I need some means of protecting myself. And plus we've got copperheads, which are the most obnoxious serpents on the face of the earth because they have a survival mechanism which is just too good. They play dead and you can't see them in leaves because they are, that copper color like leaves are. So, then we have several species of rattlesnakes, and we also have water moccasins. So yeah, I absolutely support the right to keep and bear arms.
Well, I'm thinking
That's really fun.
Specifically with snakes, like you said that copperheads are easy to hide. Like, would a gun be useful if you can't see a snake?
Well, because they are going to make some kind of noise, rustling in the leaves or whatever, before they strike. And I do carry a Walther PPK around with me when I'm out in the yard, because just in case. Not all the time, because obviously they do hibernate during the winter and stuff. But yeah, whenever it's summer and stuff like that, yeah, I need to carry a little weapon with me just in case.
I actually never really heard about people trying to defend themselves from a snake with a gun. I get maybe we'll say a bear or a cougar, but never really heard much about snakes.
I wouldn't really want to.
You can probably take out a snake with a shovel, but at the same time, it's easier to carry a gun than it is to carry a shovel.
Yeah, and there are shells you can buy which are called rat shot, and they're like a shotgun shell for a pistol or a rifle, and they have all these little pellets inside. So you shoot you fire the gun, and it scatters a little bit, so you have a better chance of hitting a snake with that. I've hunted in my past. I don't now because I don't have a license, and I don't really have any place to put the meat if I were to kill anything. But yeah, I've gone deer hunting. I've helped to skin and butcher a deer. I wouldn't actually want to shoot at a bear because I would probably just piss it off, because they're pretty tough creatures.
Whereabouts in the country are you?
I am in the U.S. Central Highlands.
Nice.
That would be in the Ozarks and Ouachitas.
Okay. Nice. So yeah, that makes sense. All right.
I am originally from Texas, but my father was from this area, and so when he retired from the company he worked for, we moved back here, or he moved back here, and we came with him, Mom and myself. My siblings are all much older, and were already living on their own and stuff, so they stayed in Texas. I've also lived in the Pacific Northwest. I've spent time in Europe. I will eventually be back in the Pacific Northwest because that's where my boyfriend is, and he wants to marry me, and I intend to let him. Hey, speaking of my boyfriend, look, he's in here with us finally.
Congratulations!
Hey, you get to introduce...
I've only ever been up here in New England and in New York City, because New York is not a part of New England. So that's all I've really ever experienced as far as culture is concerned. The Atlantic Northeast.
Are you listening to Nick too much tell you about what's not part of New England?
You can suck my cock. Okay, Connecticut was a state 6 goddamn months before New Hampshire. I've been to goddamn New Hampshire. That shit looks nothing like England. We look more like England. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So there's my boyfriend. Let him
Hashtag fucking triggered.
There's my boyfriend. You want to introduce yourself, baby?
Oh, of course.
No,
hello
you're not. Not you. Goodness.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. It's 4:23 a.m. I feel like I'm fucking drunk.
No.
No. Oh my goodness. He does this to me often. I ask him if he wants to do something, and his response is no.
Holy Sigmar.
Well, actually, when you're talking about, the Electoral College and forms of government, what do you think about, a system of parliament, in Canada or UK? Basically, the idea is that there's actually several different ridings within the country, and people, vote for different candidates for different, in each riding for each different party, and whoever wins riding will get a seat. And whoever gets the majority seats makes up the party, while the rest makes up the opposition. What do you think about that system as opposed to the American Electoral College?
I'm not sure, but the thing is, isn't the Electoral College something reminiscent of... Didn't the founding fathers inspire themselves on the Holy Roman Empire in order to...
No. The founding fathers were very well educated in history and political philosophy. So they had... back in those days, when you went to school, you learned Latin and Greek, as well as studied classical history. So they were familiar with the Roman Republic and the Greek, the Athenian democracy and so forth. And what they were concerned with, you can read Federalist Paper number 10, which was written by James Madison, and Federalist Paper number, I forget the exact number, but it was by Alexander Hamilton. In both of those two papers, Federalist Papers, they talk about democracy and why they didn't want a democracy. And that was basically that democracy tends to devolve into what Alexis de Tocqueville called the tyranny of the majority. So it would be basically mob rule, where the most popular fad would win out. And Madison in particular talks about it in Federalist number 10, the idea of what he called them factions, what we would call today political parties. And he was opposed to factions. He said that factions are driven by fads, and we don't want this to be determined by whatever happens to be the most popular trend at the time. We want people to vote for the president based on something more than that. So that was those two Federalist Papers are the explanation for the Electoral College. Now you will hear in recent times, just since Hillary lost, you'll hear a lot of Democrats talk about how the Electoral College is a product or a vestige of slavery. That's not what it was about. Okay, it was about we don't want pure democracy, and that's why the Constitution established a democratic federal republic. So it does have some elements of democracy, but it also has some elements of a republic. That being representative government and government of law.
Of course, in the defense of Madison, he was right about the formation of factions.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that tore down the Roman Republic was the factions.
Yeah.
Which were gathered into major factions: the Populars and the Optimates.
Mm-hmm.
The Optimates were as far as I know, let me remember, they were the senatorial class, as far as I know.
The patricians.
The patricians and the populars were the
Yeah. See, Matt, now UnionAerospace is studying history. You two could have a bit to talk about. Matt is very interested in history and politics and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm doing.
Matt being my boyfriend there, he's showing up as Lunar 5 in the video.
Oh, well, I can consider myself an expert yet. All I'm doing is studying it and see if it can lead me into a good place in the future. So let's hope so.
Yeah, maybe you will wind up teaching history at a university.
Probably, but my way of teaching would be way, how do you call it? I would be one of those teachers which would drink the Kool-Aid, as far as I know. And if any of my students would come up with me and challenge me the fact that there were black people in Bohemia in 1403, get your fucking creed out of your fucking ear. I'm really sorry, but until there's substantial evidence that there was black people in Bohemia in 1403, I'm gonna consider that as a mere hypothesis. One which has not been proven.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of black people in Bohemia in 1403. That doesn't... I have no idea about that.
Well, you haven't heard of Kingdom Come Deliverance, haven't you?
Yeah.
All of the fuss of what I was mentioning of black people in Bohemia and such came of the fucking Twitter mob. All of them jumping on this guy, Daniel Bavra, I think he was called. In which they were calling him everything because he was not adding black people into the game. I'm sorry, you can criticize a lot of things about that game, but not of historical inaccuracy.
Yeah, I think that, we need to have some kind of historical accuracy when we do these things. And frankly, that was one of the things Gamergate was about, not allowing external ideologies to influence games development, not being censored by people on the outside of the community and the industry because of their own, well, I would say, neuroses, basically. These people that are generally called social justice warriors, Nick has a habit of referring to them as outrage mongers, and I like that term because it's probably a little more accurate, and I generally call them postmodernist or post-structuralist outrage mongers.
I have met a lot of outrage mongers, mongers, I think it's it.
Mongers.
Outrage mongers.
Yeah, mongers.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry again for my bad English, or my broken English, or whatever. But the thing is, I have met a lot of those people on the internet, or I've been watching them in the sideways because I refuse to have Twitter. I'm sorry, but I refuse. Considering all the shit show that's been going on there, I refuse. I have met a lot of interesting people. I've met artists with a huge ego, basically. I have met game developers who'd rather cater to a political stance instead of their fans. I have met journalists who who really have disappointed me. Let's leave it like that. All that. I don't know what to say about all that, but my point is that that there's a lot of the trend of outrage mongering in itself seems the rather new fad of the decade for some reason, and I don't even know how it started. I don't even know.
I fucked off for like a second.
It probably started a long time ago.
You mean the outrage mongers, how they got started?
Yeah, I'm wondering how all the outrage culture just started.
Well, I am doing a series on the historical context of outrage mongers. And what
I would love to see that, because I would love to see where the fuck that started. Because I know where there's a little bit of it as far as the 90s is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But it did seem like it fucked off a little bit towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and then just kick-started again at some point.
Well, the thing was in the 90s, the late 90s, and then in probably 2004, 2005, there were a group of people, I don't know where they themselves came from, but they got involved with the political correctness thing.
Right.
And what they did was they started redefining terminology so that they could accuse anyone who disagreed with any part of political correctness, or who asked a question about it, a sincere question, or who offered any constructive criticism, of being a racist and a sexist and a homophobe. They hadn't added transphobe at that point in time, but they have now. So,
right.
And these were rather extreme and very neurotic people in my experience. I knew some of them. Goodness.
Yeah.
Good golly, what was that?
I knew some of these people because they were involved in some of the same activities I was involved in at the time. So, and they were very strange. They wanted everyone to get into their camp, and if we didn't, then we were automatically labeled racist and sexist and homophobe and so forth.
This is the early 2000s, you say?
Late 90s, early 2000s. I think the thing really picked up about 2003 and into 2005. And then
that's about the time I was in high school. In my high school, we didn't really have any sort of anything like that. Despite me living in a town that's mostly white and has a history with the KKK, like we don't have anything like that.
Then what happened after that was there was some resistance. By this point in time, they had pretty much established themselves in editorial positions at Wikipedia. So they were going through various articles and revising them to reflect their own viewpoint.
And this is where it all began.
And rejecting articles that challenged or questioned their viewpoint. So, sometime after that, they got interested in social justice, which was originally a Catholic doctrine, a Catholic concept that was
the fucking Catholics.
Basically a Catholic answer to the Protestant concept of social gospel. And it was a good idea at the time. And social justice in its pure form, in its original form, is not a bad thing. But these people started using the rhetoric of social justice in an effort to spread their outrage and to play victim. And that's why they are called social justice warriors instead of, social justice advocates.
That started off as a slur initially.
Right, because they were like keyboard warriors.
Hardcore with the caps lock, I got you.
And they still are keyboard warriors in the end.
Yeah.
In the end, yes. But at the same time, like, they've transcended the keyboard warrior. They've actually influenced things on a university level.
Yes.
They've become one with the rhetoric.
Actually, about like outrage mongers, like this actually been like thinking about like, especially like ever since like all this stuff with like movies and TV shows is like, where do we like draw a line from valid criticism to like just finding something that's not there, like Aeneas Arcadian trying to find patriarchy in Super Mario, for example.
Patriarchy is kind of the feminist,
Oh,
the third
shit.
wave feminist version of the boogeyman. It's something they can blame everything bad on.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, instead of looking at themselves and seeing that they're actually the shit person.
About
It's projection.
Hey, I see Nick has joined us, and I can hear you a little bit.
Turn yourself up, Nick.
Let me see if
hi.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
let me see if I can turn up your volume a bit here.
Well, I mean, is that any better?
That's good.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Loud and clear, comrade.
Alright, I think I've finally deduced why it is that my fucking terrible audio settings have been such shit lately. So that's good. It's been a productive day.
Welcome.
So you want to introduce yourself to the audience out there? I'm sure most of them know who you are.
Oh, yes, Wizard of Cause. Also known as Nick, the guy that's full of ideas that people talk about while his audio equipment isn't working properly.
Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank
What?
you.
Although I am actually going to have to step out for just a moment and have a cigarette.
Okay.
Of course.
Because I'm completely out of vape fluid. So I will be right back. Now that all this stressful horse shit is over, now that I've gotten, like, you know, all of these technical aspects, and I'm probably qualified to be a goddamn Windows technician, I'll back shortly.
Like,
Are
I'm
you sure you get your Microsoft certification?
okay. Like, actually, like I mentioned, like I did mention earlier that people claim that Star Trek Discovery is about some kind of Trump thing. Well, I don't see it, but I still but there's still people who still claim that. There's actually this Star Trek commentator called Lore Reloaded who claims that the Discovery is making fun of Trump, and I still don't see it.
I don't see it either. I'm sorry, but the few things I'm trying to say, I'm like, where's the Trump joke?
And
Honestly, I don't see any of that, even that I've seen. The very, very goddamn little bit that I've seen.
Where's the joke, Dobson?
As for my series on Outrage Mongers historical context, I've done one video in the series so far. The next one is going to be... The first one was just an introduction, and I talked a lot about Puritanism, basically. And then I got off the topic and started bitching about how the Democratic Party are not leftists and things like that. And so
not anymore. Not especially since the 90s. Not anymore.
Yeah. The after the 1988 election, Bill Clinton, a guy named Tony Coelho, I think his name is Tony, Coelho anyway, started pushing for this neoliberal perspective. And the reason they did this was because throughout the 1980s, the Republicans were consistently winning. And they decided that what they needed to do was be fiscally conservative or economically right-wing, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and then still talk about social liberal or social progressive concepts.
Right, which I can jive with that personally.
So they then started describing themselves as centrists or moderates, and that's not really what it means. It's not a mixture of classical Democratic and Republican concepts. A centrist is a person who believes in social democracy, which is a mixed economy of some right-wing ideas and some left-wing ideas. So it's like a mixture of capitalism and socialism. Basically, FDR. You know, you have still a free market, you still have capitalism, you still have private enterprise, but you also have this social safety net. That's basically what social democracy is. And from the time of Truman up through Carter, inclusive, the Democrats were more centrist than anything else. FDR was left of center, but only a little bit left of center. Mostly he was what Europeans especially would refer to as a social democrat, and that is, like I said, a person who believes in a mixed economy.
Well, what I've read of FDR, I dig his general platform.
Yeah,
Give or
FDR
take, I have some points of contention, but generally, I agree.
if you look back at the 1956 Republican Party platform, it's pretty progressive and somewhat left-wing. They talk about minimum wage, they talk about opposition to monopolies and things like that. They talk about environmentalism, they talk about Social Security.
Well, I can tell you, as far as the state is concerned, with the state of Connecticut, we vote blue in the federal elections. We're very blue in the federal elections, but locally we're very Republican.
Oh.
But we're sort of this. We're not your stereotypical Republican. When you think of Republicans, for some reason, if you're looking at it from a leftist standpoint, you think of the old Republicans of old, the Bible thumper, anti-gay, anti-this, anti-that, like, just, yeah.
They are their own type of outrage monger there.
Which that's, from my understanding, that is not the current Republican Party.
Right.
That's shades of old that people keep applying to the Republican Party at this point.
Well, the parties have changed significantly since the 1960s. Both of the major parties have changed quite a bit. I mean, you had, back in the 40s and 50s, you had a very strong conservative element in the Democratic Party, especially in the South. And at one point, they even started their own political party they called the Dixiecrats. And they didn't win, of course. But when LBJ signed the two Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s, they started leaving the Democratic Party and going to the Republican Party. So you had this influx of socially conservative, if not socially reactionary, people. And then in 1970 or 71, I think it's 71, when the Libertarian Party was established, you had a large group of Republicans who were in that Libertarian wing of the party who left the Republican Party and went to the Libertarian Party. Then in about 1977, right after Carter was elected, you had a lot of what would become the religious right who left the Democratic Party and went to the Republican Party. And so that's when you started getting all these fundamentalists and their anti-gay, anti-abortion.
To interject for a moment, honestly, I think look at the Republican Party as that particular era of the Republican Party. Like, everybody still looks at them as that reactionary, just the, God, what was it called at the time? Like Christians for the betterment of whatnot.
Moral majority.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Well, that happened because Jerry Falwell had actually supported Jimmy Carter.
Falwell.
Had supported Carter in the 76 election. And then in November of 76, Playboy came out with an issue which had an interview with Jimmy Carter. And in the interview, Carter said that he had lusted after women in his heart. I don't remember any of the rest of it, but I remember that portion because that's what they made a big to-do out of. And as that had come out, the election was already over, I guess, at that point. But the fundamentalists and those particular fundamentalists who were Falwell followers, which were basically the open fundamentalists as distinguished from the closed or separatist fundamentalists, decided that they were going to join the Republican Party in protest. And so you had that religious right rising in the 80s. And mostly what happened was the politicians gave them lip service but didn't do anything for them, really.
That's really nice.
But they used them for their votes, certainly. And so you have a lot of...
That's just how it works, though.
Yeah, that's how it works.
So you have a lot of Republicans in the 80s who were putting on a show of being righteous and Christian and so forth. And you would find...
they were banging fucking male pages.
Yeah, exactly. You could catch them... say Jimmy Swaggart got caught with a prostitute, Jim Baker got caught with the church secretary, and it goes on. And it's still going on today. They still talk about being a righteous people, and they still get caught, waving their hand under the bathroom stall trying to solicit gay sex and things like that.
Righteousness is more like honor in that it's not really something that you ascribe to yourself. It's something that others ascribe to you after viewing your actions. And those, you almost always find the most haughty and righteous are always the ones with like the most skeletons in their closet. Like, oh, you're a massive homophobe? Well, how many underage boys have you banged?
The thing is, in my opinion is this: the more you presume of something, the more you lack it.
Yeah, like I think there's like some kind of like projection going on, like.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, like.
I can see from a mile away. Like,
But so these guys were the original, well, not the original, but they were certainly the outrage mongers in the 1980s. And in my first video in the series, I talk about Puritanism quite a bit, and then I got off the topic, but it was in my script because I intended to get off the topic to point out how the Democratic Party is in no way leftist. And then my next video, which I haven't come out with yet, I'm still working on that, is I'm going to be talking about Calvinism. Well, Calvinism is one of the inspirations of Puritanism. So I'll be talking about particularly the Calvinists at the Council of Dort came up with the 5 points of Calvinism. And the first one, they're called TULIP because the first letter of each doctrine spells out TULIP. But the first one is total depravity, where they talk about how humanity is so completely corrupted and depraved by virtue of having inherited this sinful nature from the sin of Adam in the garden, right?
The original sin.
Right. So they couldn't actually choose to be saved even if they wanted to. You have to be predestinated and blah, blah, blah. So that was a part, I think, that contributed into this outrage culture.
Probably it could have contributed, but the thing is, there's a lot of arguments saying that these outrage mongers are using the same arguments of the original sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me
definitely a lot of that. Yeah.
They use them. It's ironic that they accuse the religious right of being nuts. Yet they use the same arguments as the religious right.
Well, you got to understand, though. I mean, in terms of at least the modern mainstream political left, for instance, that's kind of a new development. I think it's kind of rooted basically in a lot of people who take on their politics more from a place of seeking a sense of righteousness rather than a sense of rightness, and they go so far with that, they don't ever bother to actually put in the real work of verifying whether or not what they're fucking saying and doing and talking about and thinking is legitimately worthwhile in any real conceivable way.
That could be it. The thing is, there's a lot of shit I want to say when it comes to politics. A lot of shit. But because of the current climate I have on my college, I am afraid to say it. I feel genuinely afraid to say a lot of things in my college.
Yeah, which I can understand, depending on university climate.
I am afraid because I am afraid that someone might spin my words and use them against me. Which is inevitably going to happen, regardless of what I say.
Yeah, so let me take a guess. The people are going to like spin your words and use it against you. Like, I take it like you go to college with a better score.
Well, no, I'm going to call history college, which is for example, we study a lot of things. We study the history of Spain throughout all the centuries. We study the history of the world. There's some assignments which are like, what's the name of this one? Modern, contemporary, historiographic, and methodological tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we recently had a debate of what constituted the May '68 student protest. There were some people that supported what they did, in which they were calling it a protest against the old established order after World War II.
Well, what was the actual protest?
1968. 1968, in which apparently all of the students of Paris, together with the working class, they all promoted a general strike against the French government.
Mm-hmm.
I remember something about that.
It got so bad that the French president, Charles de Gaulle, had to leave the country a moment in order to contact with the military in Germany.
Okay.
To me, what I consider that, for example, I disagreed with a lot of the things of the project of '68. You know why? Because these students were unironically apologists of Maoism. They were considering Maoism as an alternate route to the Soviet communism. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A communism out of the clutches of the Soviet Union. But when I hear that, I'm like, guys, didn't you guys hear what fucking Mao was doing with his Cultural Revolution, for instance?
Mm.
I disagreed with those objects. I disagreed with the fact that if May of '68 changed anything to me, it didn't change anything. In fact, I think what it did was change things for the worse when it came to the college system. Because
I think a big thing of it is romanticism. A lot of these kids, and that's what these people are. These kids, they look back on the history of like the Vietnam era protests and occupying administration buildings and all this. And to them, it's like it looks like a great fun time. So they want to go and get in on some of that action. They want to get some of their own little juice flow, and it just doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've said before that I think that a lot of this issue at the moment is people who wish they could have been part of the social revolution of the 1960s and early 70s, and they are trying to basically start, for example, the race war that we averted. My generation and the generation immediately before mine were the first generation to have integrated school systems. I went to school with blacks and Hispanics and Asians, and I don't remember any Jews, but there probably were. I mean, my mom's first boss that I can recall was Jewish, and he was a nice guy named David. I don't remember his last name. But, I mean, we all were there together. There were Native Americans, a guy named, his last name was Castaneda, I think. But anyway, so he obviously was at least part Spanish. But the thing was, we all learned together, we played together, and we learned as a result that there is good and bad in everyone. It's not like just because you're black you're evil, or because you're white you're good, or any of that kind of thing. I had friends of, and we never really thought about color so much. The first time I can remember any kind of thing about racism was, I think it was 5th or 6th grade. There was a black guy who sat behind me in that class, and we were always pretty close together because our names started with L. And so, most of the teachers then would arrange the class by alphabetical order. And I said something to him, and I called him boy. And he said, "Don't call me boy." And I looked at him and I said, "What do you want me to call you, girl?" And I started laughing at him. And he said, "No, when a white person calls a black person boy, it's racist." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I'd never heard of this before. It was news to me.
Wow, I can't believe that actually happened. Since when? I'm really sorry if I have to say this, but Since when is boy racist?
Well, apparently it was something that
In the U.S.
slavery. Yeah, in the U.S., the slavers used to talk to their slaves and call them boy. But I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Are you fucking serious?
Mm-hmm.
This world is done for. Fuck it. Let the asteroid hit us, everything, and let's be done with this already.
Yeah, I'm a little sad that the Kim is he stopped launching nukes because I'm fucking ready for it. Just bring it on. Just bring on the nuclear fire.
Gonna play Fallout in real life, huh?
Yeah.
Fallout
I know what I'm doing already.
Fallout in real life may not be as fun, but you know.
Yeah, maybe save up your bottle caps then. Like.
Really though, I cannot believe the state of the current world. I think insanity it's like the, what's the expression? That the asylum inmates are running the show now?
The lunatics have taken over the asylum.
Yes, that. The inmates have taken over the asylum. Holy shit, it's like I'm living a worldwide version of Arkham Asylum at this point.
There's a
Without
song.
the fun.
I never played that game.
There's a song. I think it's by the Lunatics called "The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum." It's pretty cool.
Really, I'm seeing a lot of shit right now, and for example, I lived already a lot of shit. I was young when I lived the whole thing of the Arab Spring, for instance. Well, not lived because I have seen them only through the fucking TV. I wouldn't call that living. I do not have a stake because I didn't participate in that. But I've witnessed it, at least. I've witnessed it through that. I was one of the ones who bought the rhetoric that it was something amazing going on, and then several years later, I'm like, holy shit, how the fuck could I think of this? The end result, we have civil wars all over the place. The only place in which it didn't degenerate in civil war was fucking Tunis. Egypt is back to being a military dictatorship. And nothing changed. Well, it did change, for the worse. But who am I to talk about? I'm just a fucking privileged white male, right?
Goddamn cis male.
No
Goddamn
way.
cis male.
You're a fucking white male.
You need to
Fucking
flog
white male.
yourself. Stop, flog yourself, son. Go off and flog yourself.
Well, I'm gonna do something better. I'm gonna become a flagellant. Gonna become a flagellant.
What the fuck is a flagellant?
It's kind of a monk.
Yes.
It's a Warhammer joke, basically. There's these crazy nuts in Warhammer called the flagellants, which are the hardcore worshippers of Sigmar. In which the only way they worship their god is by smiting thy heretic.
Well, Iesu Domine whack. Dona eis requiem.
Ite de Jesu Domine, dona eis requiem.
And smack yourself in the face.
Basically, the albino wielder from the Da Vinci Code, right?
Yeah, the Opus Dei.
I've never seen that one.
There really is Opus Dei in the Roman Catholic Church, and CUF, which stands for Catholics United for the Faith. These are very, very theologically conservative members of the church, and they want to go back to the Latin Mass. They want to go back to all of this pre-Vatican II stuff. It's really strange and disturbing.
Hell, let's bring back the Black Plague. Why not? That was part of the Middle Ages. Let's bring that back. Why not? Holy fucking shit. Some of the logic. The thing is, if literally those people in charge were back in the Middle Ages, they'd be the fucking lords of the castle, and we'd be the fucking peasants.
Yeah.
We've been the fucking peasants in that regard.
Being peasants, you know, I mean, being a peasant, being in peasant class, peasant mode, it just shifts with the times. Because I mean, right now, if you've got like shitty publicly available Wi-Fi, for instance, as some cities have.
All right.
Like,
So
that's being a peasant. Like that's modern.
how's it going?
Modern peasant.
Yep.
So is this the sports ball? That's a thing that apparently happened
Sports
all around the
ball.
world.
What happened?
Hand egg.
What the fuck is that?
Oh, there was
And
a
egg?
sports ball.
Yeah,
There
that's
was
the
sports ball.
American.
Really?
Was there a sports
Yeah,
ball?
we refer to it as funny,
Wow.
I guess.
My God, I'm living in a cave. I'm living in a fucking cave.
No, it's hand egg is a slang term for American football because the ball in American football is, kind of
Oh,
Yeah.
shaped.
Ish.
Yeah. Ish.
also, I do have to ask. I think. Oh, my fucking ears.
I got a stuffed Pepe in the mail today.
Stuffed Pepe. It's really nice. The thing is,
Oh, he's
Sounds like something delicious.
have any of you guys seen? Have any of you guys seen Ready Player One?
Just not yet.
I mentioned to I forgot who, but I thought first time I saw what that was, I was like, oh, they made a live action Wreck-It Ralph. That looks great.
Well, that's it's just I returned from the cinema, and I'm not gonna spoil anything because why not? But do not listen to the reviews.
Is it a good movie?
It's how do you call it? It's a fun movie. Let's leave it at that. If you want to just disconnect and have a fun time with it, yeah, you can grab a drink and have a good time with it.
Mm.
If you want to have a good time with a movie, drop some acid and watch Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah, like
Oh, another movie I haven't seen.
If you wanna be happy about your life, don't make a pretty woman your wife.
yeah, like that's actually an interesting thing about like movie reviews and rating movies. Like it's not really all that scientific. Like, see, I really admit actually like I really did like The Last Jedi, but also another movie I like was happened to be Ghostbusters 2016. Like, which kind of makes me wonder: am I a closet SJW since I like both those movies?
Wait, you like what movie?
Not necessarily.
Ghostbusters.
Oh,
2016.
no. I mean, here's the thing. If you found like something enjoyable about that new Ghostbusters movie, then genuinely, not even facetiously, good for you. I mean, a lot of people found it really difficult to watch and really difficult to enjoy, not just out of nostalgia, but because there are lots of genuine complaints about it. But if you were able to enjoy the thing, then fucking, congratulations. Funny thing, actually, like, I had a friend who was both a stand-in and sort of a featured extra in that film. Because the entire thing was filmed in Boston. But, I mean, like Last Jedi, for instance, right? Like, I got two really good perspectives. I got my own perspective, sitting and watching it on my own. And I watched it, when I watched it on my own, my operative question throughout the entire film over and over and over again, why? Why is this character here? Who is this character and why do I need to give a shit? I'm having trouble giving a shit. Why did that just happen? And it was sloppy, kind of lazy, shitty writing. Maybe I expect more because it's Star Wars, which at this point no one really should anymore. But I mean, to me, it felt like a Disney movie. It felt like I was watching a Pirates of the Caribbean film. And I remember the first time I noticed that very definite Disney feeling. I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy 2, right? So the first Guardians of the Galaxy, really fun. They're both fun, really fun movies. I like them both. But watching, you watch Guardians 1, and it's this comic book-esque sci-fi fucking weirdo film. Okay, cool. A lot of fun. And then, it's pretty formulaic. You kind of see where everything's going, but it's fine. In the second one, there were so many obvious, like, Disney writer moments where I half expected, like, actually, we actually had that in that little pirate crew. You've got, like, the one or two, like, sort of dumb-ish, smart-talking exposition characters.
Well,
And then there's that whole bit where Rocket's like blasting all the bad guys are being blown up in the air over and over again while he laughs, and it's like, and they're all, whoa, oh! Yeah, it's pure fucking Disney horse shit, right?
Of course.
And then Last Jedi, I saw lots of that, and what I noticed too, for instance, like in any
the
given
one with the
moment,
man from Nantucket.
who said I'll watch this movie? Fuck it.
Whose dick was so long he could suck it. He said with a grin while wiping his chin, "If my ear were a hole, I could fuck it."
He sat in his chair with his neck covered in hair.
I have a problem with
And
that.
said-
Your ear is actually technically.
Your ear is technically what, a hole?
Not even
It's
sure.
not a fuckable hole. I mean,
I think they did an episode of Family Guy about that.
well, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, all the same. Last Jedi, like, the other perspective I got was I showed it to Quinn, and I sat and watched it with her. And she thought it was awesome. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's right. That's who this entire franchise
Is my
for.
internet being a piece of shit, or is it actually a conversation?
Not sure at this point.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I can still hear you guys just fine.
The thing is, and the few things I've seen about the fucking Ready Player One film before it even was out, some of those things I've read was actually hilarious. And after it came out, for example, Cracked, what Ready Player One tells us about toxic fandom, included with Game Drop. Will Latch from Paste, Ready Player One, harmless and derivative in 2011, but seems oddly weaponized in the Gamergate age. But what someone like, say, Michael Bay or Max Landis would have done with the book is more than a little bit terrifying.
Alright, so what is the Gamergate age?
Oddly weaponized in the Gamergate age, I don't know. I don't know what the Gamergate age is.
What even?
Age of Gamergate.
The age of pep. The age of pep. An age of oppression and hurt feeling.
Oh, okay.
Well, I haven't seen.
Well, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. So.
No. Respect my fucking safe space, you shitlord.
Respect my fucking authority.
Also, Brandon Williams, iNews. Ready Player One panders to a lame sexist nerd culture that needs to die.
Well, just based by like the trailers, like I think like I haven't seen it, but based on first impressions, I kind of think that maybe like relying too much on nostalgia, which is one of the main criticisms of the Force Awakens. Like,
I mean, come on, the fucking Iron Giant shows up in that film. You don't think that's pandering to nostalgia?
yeah,
The fucking Iron Giant. Mecha Godzilla, also. For Christ's sakes, even fucking Tracer shows up.
Goodness. So I have a question for you, Nick. You've said when I talked with you before on in the interview I did with you on this channel, you said that you believe that Gamergate is over. Now I've heard this from a couple of other original gangsters, so to speak. Grim Jim, for example.
For all intents and purposes, yeah, the thing's over. I mean, like, the whole culture war crap, that, like, it didn't even kick it off, it just sort of kicked it up in the high gear. That's also going. It's, it's just evolved into a new thing, in a sense. And, yeah, it's like anything else. I mean, with Gamergate, you actually had a lot of pretty like overtly right-wing conservative elements coming in and seeing it as an opportunity to attack a hard left position.
Mm-hmm.
And they made their inroads in that. I mean, fucking, what is it? Even when he was still Internet Aristocrat. I mean, Medicare's big bitch when he quit was the fact that it wasn't turning into the chance to, you know, basically crush the libs that he wanted.
Mm.
And we're seeing the same thing now. I mean, you know, so you've got this modern kind of online culture war thing, kind of being like it's been headed by sort of Sargon and the big YouTube names, and you know, Tommy Robinson, Dankula, she's stirring shit up. And this, I mean, like, and this is like, you know, this is how the alt-right came to be. That they saw an opportunity to sort of latch themselves onto a thing, and they did it. And they, you know, keep running with it as hard as they can because, you know, it's like either you're alt-right or you're like the alt-light, and it's all still like, oh, we're the new edgy, hip, rebellious sort of underground politics scene. Cool, kid. How goes it, kid? Do you like music bands? Yeah, it's like, and you know, we're really gonna revel in those punk rock values of ours. Our hard rock values.
Gamergate is the new boogeyman, though.
Well,
That's the issue.
Oh, well, they're still, no, the people who, like, you know, the people like the Zoe Quinns, the Sarkeesians, all those fucking people, they will never stop invoking it, ever,
Right,
because
right.
it's all they have.
Exactly. But my question in particular was, when do you think Gamergate ended, exactly? Or roughly?
That's a good question.
Because I've asked several people, and the people who say that it's over generally say something like, about the time I left. But
well, yeah, I mean, most people sort of abandoned. I mean, what was it? So, I think a good, I mean, I can't say specifically, but I think a good frame of reference is when, what is it, Davis Arini, I think was the guy, tried producing the Sarkeesian Effect. Remember that? Yeah, about when that horse shit went down, I'd say that's about the time frame where sort of the hashtag had jumped the shark. We had already had a series of meetups and people hanging out, and yeah, it was. I think in a sense too, it was largely just a very prolonged meme storm that no one really recognized as being a meme storm.
So I've talked with some of these people who were involved in the beginning, and they often say late 2014 or early 2015. Matt Yarbo, or Matt Jarbo, Matt Gerbil, whatever, Mundane Matt.
My boy.
He said, he told me that he thinks that it ended around 2015, but it didn't really end, it just transformed into a watchdog group.
Good, yeah, kind of. I can see that. Holy shit, I named my pizza Lazy Stoner Pizza. Wow.
Lazy Stoner Pizza.
Yeah, it's apparently it's a Alfredo chicken and spinach pizza.
Ah.
It's not bad. Yeah, you can do worse, you know.
One of these days, if I ever get back to the Pacific Northwest and start my pizzeria, you'll have to come in and check out Pizza di Giovanna. And I make a variety of different kinds of pizza. I have a recipe book with 500 different recipes for pizzas and flatbreads. You can make the dough out of all kinds of different stuff. You can have different kinds of sauces. You can have different kinds of toppings, different cheeses. I like to make one with a ranch salad dressing as a topping. Is pretty good. But Pizza di Giovanna. But Pizza di Giovanna, the greatest, the most characteristic quality of Pizza di Giovanna is that it has extra sauce, and it's normal pizza sauce, but I make it myself with tomatoes that are grown in the volcanic soil of Monte Vesuvio, and basil from Italy, as well as salt, pepper, and garlic and onions. And then the toppings can vary a little bit, but usually we're talking about salami genovese, which is Genoa salami, Canadian bacon, Kalamata olives. And then I use primarily mozzarella, but also a little bit of smoked provolone and some goat cheese.
That is so fucking tasty. Holy shit. I love it. I'm just hearing that. I'm getting hungry again. God damn it.
That's actually very good. Like,
Listen, guys. It's very late over here, so I do really have to hit the sack.
Okay,
Two
buenas
things.
noches.
Two things. One, thank you for allowing me to participate in this live stream.
Thanks
That's
for
the first
coming.
thing.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in.
And second, before I leave, I want you to know that I want to live by these words. I do not agree with what you say, but I will defend your right to say it till the death.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know who said that?
Evelyn Beatrice Hall in The Friends of Voltaire.
Of course. Studying history has taught me that fucking phrase.
Yeah,
And by fucking God, I will live through that phrase.
there you go.
I will fucking live through it. Because I want to be defined as that. I want to be defined as that kind of person. And the reason why I fucking hate these censorship, these neo-language, because I'm gonna call them like Orwell called it, the neo-language. I cannot stand it as a person, and my moral principles say that I have to fight back against this somehow. I want to figure out how to fight back against this. I struggle to find a way to fight back against this, but I swear to God that I will do it, even if it costs me everything in the end. Because in the end, there's a thing. History should be used to teach, because we learn the mistakes of our past this way. And a people who has forgotten their history is doomed to repeat it.
Yep, I included an image of that quote from George Santayana earlier in the stream. So if you watch it later, you'll see that included in the visual aspect of the stream. I'll keep changing these images that I have in the background there.
I will check it. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream if there's going to be another next live stream.
Okay, live long and prosper.
have a good night.
Good night, and live long and prosper, Luciana.
All right. So then, okay, where are we now?
I was just ordering food, actually.
Ordering food. I see Anahata dropped out. She doesn't appear to be online anymore.
Yeah,
I'm wondering
I think
if
she
maybe
was-
that's fucked.
yeah. Like, I think she did mention that she seems to be like kind of like actually like a little earlier. I think I might have cut out for a little bit as well. Like,
Yeah, she was saying something about she could still hear us, but something, and I didn't quite catch it.
yeah.
No, I think she said something to the effect of her internet was. She was wondering if her internet was fucked or not, and I guess it was kind of fucked. So
Well, there you go. So you can see Lunar5 here is in the stream with us. He hasn't said much of anything. I think the only thing he's said so far is no. But that is my boyfriend, and he's the guy who first introduced me to one of your videos, Nick. So if he wants to speak with you, yeah, he has good taste, yeah. If he wants to speak with you, hey, baby, you want to talk to Nick? He's going to say no again, watch.
Assuming he's even at the keyboard, like.
Well, he's
Whoa.
also playing
Oh.
Elder Scrolls
Holy
Online,
shit.
so...
actually, let me. I'm gonna mute for a moment. I will be right back. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. So what do you think about this new expansion that we're going to get in Star Trek Online, Ryan?
Well, I actually really excited because like because Deep Space Nine is a good source for material, and that's where a lot of the world building for Star Trek came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like with the very little they released so far, I kind of raised like more questions. Like,
Yeah. Like what?
I think there's like a leak of a Cardassian ship, and it makes you wonder, like, well, they're going to be Cardassian playable. I'm going to suspect it's going to be something similar to what they did to Cardassians, which is going to be like a lifetime reward.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be for like Starfleet and KDF, and so I'm thinking if they're actually going to add more races to the Dominion faction, I think it's going to be more likely there'll be like Gamma Quadrant native species, like. But yeah, I'm actually kind of like, but I'm kind of like excited for it, like.
You saw that the level cap is going to be increased to 65.
Yes, and thankfully they're not going to add another Tier 7 ship, so.
I wonder if they're going to add any more. Well, I think there was something said about adding a new mastery or a new specialization, but I forget what it was now.
I think they say that it'd be constable, like it'll be another secondary specialization.
Yeah, constable, that was it.
So I think it was actually mentioned that they're going to add a new type of progression in there, which.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see what it is like. Like if they're going to be like you're going to add 5 new levels, they must add something new to it. Like
I will expect, honestly, I think that Star Trek Online will eventually raise the level cap to 100 before it ends. So hopefully we still have a few years of playing this game. I am very fond of the game. I mean, in some ways it's not as good as it was when I started, but in other ways it's better. I mean, for example, we can play Romulans now and not have to make them through the alien generator as Klingons or Federation. We certainly have a number of really nice ships. I love my Vulcus Temporal Science Dreadnought. And the specialization feature is also quite a plus to the game. I do think that they have maybe it would be better if they stopped monetizing Tier 5 ships, since they now have Tier 6 ships they can monetize instead. But yeah, that might be interesting. I mean, of course you can always pick up a Tier 5 or Tier 6 ship out of a lockbox, or you can get a Tier 6 ship out of one of these special events like the summer event, the winter event, the anniversary event, and so forth. But for the average player, apart from that special event thing, the only way to get a Tier 6 ship is to buy it from the C-store, and it's still the case with the Tier 5 ships as well. And so I think it maybe would be beneficial in terms of customer retention and keeping, looking towards the long term, if they made Tier 5 ships something you can get in-game with, with dilithium or in-game currency or whatever.
Well, I guess like in theory, you grind a lot, you could get the lithium with the exchange, and
yeah, you can do that absolutely. Although I usually just sell Zen for dilithium myself.
Yeah, you need to. That lithium you buy everything with the lithium.
Yeah, I trade in Zen I sell my Zen, which is the cash money you spend, real money to buy Zen. And I usually sell that for dilithium, so I've got that in-game currency. And one of the reasons I do that is because I run 4 fleets and 2 armadas, so I like to dump a lot of dilithium into the fleet holding projects.
Yeah, and of course, like about like having free Tier 5 ships, like I think like usually when there's a C-store promotion where you give some away for free, it's usually you unlock a Tier 5 ship.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel like most of the Tier 5 ships I unlock are from those promotions. Like, I can, like, see, like, I think the most recent one was the Terrified Galaxy and also the Terrified Defiant.
Ah, yeah, I do have the tier 6. What is it? The the Galaxy Dreadnought tier 6. I don't know, maybe just a Galaxy tier 6. That was the Mirror Universe edition of it, which has the red, I think it's Virgo pattern on the hull.
Nice.
Yeah, I have yet to fly it, actually, because I've got all these other nifty ships. I mean, if you want to talk about Romulan ships, I've got them all on my main character, which is why I am a bit frustrated. I think they should increase the cap on how many ships you can have. I know they've got that dry dock thing, but you still have to peel all your equipment off of the ship in order to dry dock it, which is a bit annoying if you have limited inventory and bank space, as I do.
Sorry, go ahead. Like, I'm about to say that actually I do use my extra ships as bank space. Like,
yeah, I do that too a bit. So, what do you think, Lunar 5, Matt? What do you think about this new expansion coming? You talk about this for a few moments while I go to the powder room. I'll be back.
No problem.
See if you can talk my boyfriend into actually speaking.
So, Lunar, are you going to make the main character?
About
of Star Trek Online, a new expansion.
as long as they don't screw up.
Like, see, they release a little bit, but they not enough to make it actually make me very curious.
I'll probably give out some benefits.
Like, I'm just going to make a few presumptions. Like, see, like if you're going to start at level 60, I think your starship is going to be technically Tier 5, and at least Tier 5. Like, which, like, if you're going to start at level 60, then does that mean you're going to get am I going to give you a ship that is viable for endgame content? Because, like, even if you don't get an upgrade, there's actually builds to make the 3 Tier 5 ships you get at level 40 viable. Like,
I just don't want it to be how they did Delta Rising. That was aggravating.
You mean like how they kind of like make the leveling kind of more tedious? Though I actually have noticed that once you get the fleet, I don't remember the name of the system, but the fleet admiral system up and saying
tedious,
like your extra
slow. How they put all the levels behind the missions behind level gates.
Yeah, like I gotta go read that kind of sucked as well. Like when you complete a mission, like you have to try to replay the mission again, or maybe send your DOF missions and do patrol just to gain some levels. Like,
Okay, I'm back.
welcome back. Like, well, what you missed, like you were saying that you hope that the leveling won't be like Delta Rising.
Yeah, that was annoying. Have to do several things in between missions just to get to the next mission.
Like, there's like I have like so many there's like a few. Sorry.
No, it's just a fucking sweet deal. It's got a free pizza.
Nice.
Nice.
I mean, it's Domino's, so it's still like.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah, well, I don't have to pay for it, so I don't feel as bad.
Domino's is pretty good. Like, actually, try this combination: pineapple, olives, and anchovies. Like, that's pretty good.
Oh boy!
Nah, I went with an spinach chicken Alfredo.
That sounds pretty good too. Like,
it is, and the fact that I'll forgive you for recommending pineapple on the internet, no less.
Hey, now.
Because this is my friend's channel, and I'm not here to make waves.
Okay, like, actually, another pizza I would recommend is a Hawaiian with shrimp on it.
Oh, one of my favorite pizzas.
Anything with shrimp, yeah.
A shrimp cocktail pizza. I make a shrimp cocktail pizza, and I use cocktail sauce instead of pizza sauce.
Well, I used to do this thing. I worked at this pizzeria called Bertucci's. It's like a brick oven, hand-tossed sort of thing. Always, and like the food's so cheap, at least to make, that yeah, I leave work with like 2 or 3 to-go boxes every night. Yeah, so that was nice. But I used to do. I'd sort of spice up the standard tomato sauce with some additional sort of like, little minced garlic, little minced onion, that sort of thing. And then what I do was I would put down a nice healthy bed of mozzarella and then dabs of ricotta with alternating meatball and shrimp, like half shrimp on it. And that.
Nice.
That's actually really tasty sounding like.
Oh yeah, fucking decadent, my dude.
Now I'm going to tell you a secret about sauces, and I did speak about this in the Lesser Saints of Discord stream that I was in 3 or 4 weeks ago now, I guess. When you are going to start putting toppings on a pizza, you have to consider the sauce. If the sauce is already cooked, then you need to put the toppings directly on the sauce and the cheese over the top of the toppings, because that way the flavors will mingle better. If the sauce has not been cooked yet, you're going to be cooking it as part of the pizza being cooked, then you put a little bit of cheese down, but leave enough, gaps between the cheese bits that there's still sauce visible. So then you put your toppings on that, and then you put the cheese on top of that. Because when the sauce is already cooked, it doesn't matter as much, because the flavors are not going to mingle very well anyway. Or did I get that backwards? Fuck, I don't know. I've drunk a whole bottle of wine now. I mean...
Well, when I make homemade pizza, I just usually use a jar of spaghetti sauce, and usually with the jarring process, carrying process, that they already heat it up for a bit, like.
Yeah. Well, if you buy the sauces in a jar or a squeeze bottle or any of that kind of stuff, like contadina or ragu or whatever, a prego, those are already cooked. But if you make your own sauce, as I do, which, I make my sauce, I buy the San Marzano tomatoes. And usually I buy the large can, which also comes with some basil. And so the basil and the tomatoes both come from Italy. So I use that to make my sauce, and then I add salt and pepper, of course, and garlic and onion powder. And maybe another little secret ingredient that I'm not going to list here, because I can't give away all my secrets, right?
Nutmeg!
No, it's not nutmeg.
Nutmeg goes good and everything. Almost.
So, I do make my own sauce when I don't want to be, when I have time, and I'm not like starving. Otherwise, I'll just use contadina.
You know what? Is it odd that all this like food talk kind of reminds me of the time when I was looking for like home cures for ear infections? Like, because some of the stuff you mentioned is a part of like a homemade cure for ear infection.
For an ear infection? Well, yeah, you want to use if you have say Pseudomonas infection in your external acoustic meatus, you want to use vinegar, because that's one of the things that they actually prescribe, acetic acid. And if you recognize acetic, it's ACETIC. Well, the Italian word for vinegar is aceto, ACETO. So it's obviously vinegar.
Yeah. But yeah, like, see, like a couple weeks ago, I had this horrible ear infection, and I was actually trying to find trying to look for stuff on the internet to treat it, and of course, like I see there's something that says like olive oil, basil, and garlic with vinegar, which kind of to me sounds like a salad dressing.
I wouldn't do that.
Like I know, like I think like I might as well just maybe go to like I know like go to a salad bar and maybe take the dressing and just pour it in my ear and
just use a little bit of diluted vinegar, and you can also get what is that called? Mercurochrome, or there's another brand. It's what they used to call monkey blood. You know what that is?
No idea. I'm guessing it's not literal monkey blood.
It's not real monkey blood, no. It used to be made with mercury, but they don't put mercury in it anymore. So it was mercurochrome, and what was the other one? There were two different brands under which it was marketed, and they still make it, but they don't use the mercury anymore. It's just iodide.
Yeah, I guess iodine definitely is safer when compared to mercury.
Yeah.
Actually, get this. Like, while I was looking up like ear infection cure, they actually said that you can actually use breast milk.
Breast milk for what now?
Curing an ear infection, like.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, like. I think that maybe like Nick maybe bring this along to Jeff Holiday and see if he can debunk it because. Well, I guess kind of.
I'll try. I'll make a note to ask him if he knows anything about this. So, I am actually going to have to run down to get my laundry now, though, and then I've got food coming through. So I'm sorry I couldn't participate more. Fighting with this microphone was such a pain in the dick. My God. I think I've got it, though. I think I'm actually going to be able to stream properly now.
Cool. I don't know if Jables Bookley was talking about he might hop in, but I don't know if he's going to or not.
Well, go and fucking bang his door down.
Yeah.
It has been good chatting with you, though. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't actually contribute more.
No worries. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, and I will let me know the next time you do one of these. As long as I'm around, I'll jump back in.
Okay, cool.
Well, you have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Bye.
Have a good night. Yeah, like the thing. The thing about like the breast milk cure is that it's not really available to me. I'm also going with the salad dressing cure.
No, I would say just get some maybe white vinegar and dilute it a bit with water and put that in your ear. That would probably help. Now, this is only for external infections. If you have otitis media, for example, which is an inner ear infection, or a middle ear infection, sorry. Otitis media with effusion is when the eustachian tube gets clogged up and inflamed. And this usually happens as a result of some kind of sinus infection, a cold, the flu, allergies, that kind of stuff. Then you're going to have to go to the doctor, and what you'll usually wind up getting is some kind of decongestant like Naldogen and some kind of antibiotic, which I think they usually prescribe amoxicillin for that. But if you have like a staph infection or a Pseudomonas infection in the outer ear, the ear canal, then yeah, you could use mercurochrome and a bit of diluted white vinegar. I am not a medical professional. This is just what I know from my own experience. And I mean, I've been prescribed acetic acid, which is just vinegar.
Yeah, like, of course, another thing I have available lots of is hydrogen peroxide, which someone actually did recommend. That's another way to treat it.
Yes, hydrogen peroxide is good too. It's especially good if you have one of those little. It's like a squeeze. It's got it's a ball. It's a rubber ball, hollow rubber ball with like a cone shape attached to it, and you can like suck up some hydrogen peroxide into the ball and then squirt it into your ear and kind of wash it out a bit. That stuff works pretty good too.
Actually, I have that kind of thing, but what I do is actually, like, I just simply, like, pour hydrogen peroxide in my ear, let my side for a bit, and then afterwards I just use that thing to actually wash it all out with warm water.
Warm water, yeah. I don't have these ear infections anymore. I used to when I was younger, and then when I had my tonsils removed, I didn't have them anymore after that. But I did have a Pseudomonas infection a few years ago. I mean, I'm not really sure how I got that. They call it also swimmer's ear because it seems like a lot of people catch it when they're swimming in a body of water, not a swimming pool, because you've got chlorine in the swimming pool to kill all the germs and shit.
Yeah.
So, and I had not been swimming at the time for quite some time, so I don't know how I got the Pseudomonas infection.
Well, actually, what I eventually did was I go see a doctor, and she prescribed me like this medication, which is a combination of antibiotic and steroid ear drops, and it actually worked very well with me.
Jabel says he doesn't think he's going to be able to come on tonight, so we're probably not going to have anyone else unless Anahata comes back.
Yeah.
And I guess Grim is in bed at this hour. He's in England.
Yeah, like, I guess, like, not everyone can be like Robin Gething and stay up all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, those streams, they're like forever, aren't they?
I know, like, that's what they're known for. Like, usually, like, God will pop in and out all the time, like.
I should hop in tomorrow night and take part in the stream tomorrow night, because I missed the one from last week. Wait, is it tomorrow? Yeah, this is Friday, right? Yeah. So he does them on Saturdays, right?
Yep, usually every Saturday, unless he got something else to do that day, so.
Yeah. Alright, so I might hop into his stream tomorrow, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and of course, like, I usually, like, work until the afternoon tomorrow, so I might be, if I do come on, I might be a little late, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, alright. I don't know what else, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I'm guessing by the title you were thinking about, like, talking about conspiracies, like.
Oh no,
Harvey.
This is just a joke. Is it? Yeah, because I did a super chats to a YouTube Saints one. I guess it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and the super chat was just Lee Harvey Oswald did 9/11.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of and Nick did a video earlier today about conspiracy theories, and I told him he'd been wandering around in my head again because I had already planned for this stream to have this title like over a week ago. So
yeah, like maybe I should I usually work at times, but usually I miss like YouTube Saints, but they seem pretty interesting. With the few I saw, that it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's what I would characterize it as a late night adult politically incorrect talk show. So that's why I usually put the links to it in my Random Weirdness channel, because it's not usually not meant to be taken seriously. There's a lot of joking around in there, and a lot of intoxication on the part of the people in the show. So yeah. It's a bit different from Nick's usual content, which is more cerebral. And Jeff's as well, I guess, because he does a lot of debunking of pseudoscience and woo and things like that.
Yeah, I guess it certainly is, like, at least it's I guess like YouTube saying it actually is a bit more productive than say the morning kumite.
Yeah.
Like, you know, actually, like, it's actually, like I said, like, I want to, like, do videos of my own commentary, and there's, like, this subject about, like, that's basically that people becoming the swamp, like, does when people became, like, so popular, do they automatically become corrupt?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they hit that popularity level, tend to be a lot less active in other social media, but that's not universally true.
I know, like, actually, like, it's actually the one reason I got this idea is because, like, well, for Kavanaugh, which is a new YouTuber I've been helping, like, write scripts for, had a DM conversation with me because, well, he's a fan of even though he's a part of Gamergate, he also likes to watch content from a certain, like, movie reviewer that no one in Gamergate really have a high opinion of. And
you mean Movie Blob?
Yeah, that guy, Bob Chipman. And of course, like, he actually, like, came across, like, some of his, like, tweets and also like a video, like, it's talking about him, and he's kind of, like, a little shocked and scared and freaked out. And like, see, like, if you actually look at see, we put aside, like, it kind of think of, like, the duality. Like, when you look at his movie views alone, like Movie Bob, like, he does, like, seem to make some very good points. But when you go into, like, his Twitter comments about, like, other topics, he does sound like a lunatic. And of course, we did have a conversation. Of course, like, well, I did have, like, I did kind of give it my input because, like, you pretty much know my position on Sargon because, like, I used to be a fan, but I'm not. Yes, and it kind of makes me wondering, like, do people like Sargon and Movie Bob, like, how easy is it for them to be mad with power, and, like, they do absolute power corrupts, or are they, like, always, like, deep down, like, dicks, and they become so popular that they literally think they can get away with it, like.
I don't know if it's just the popularity. I mean, you have you watched what is his name? The Report of the Week? Review Bra. You know that guy? He's
I don't
pretty
think I've
popular.
seen him, yeah.
He's pretty popular, and he doesn't seem like he's too, corrupt or anything like that. I suggested to Nick that maybe they could get him on YouTube Saints sometime. I think that would be interesting, but I don't know, if he's really the kind of guest they would have on. I mean, he does have a sense of humor. There was a thing he did not too long ago, I think it was this month, in fact, where he read negative comments from his YouTube channel, from his videos. And he was pretty entertaining there. So, I mean, he does have a sense of humor, but I'm not really sure if he would be the typical kind of guest they have on. But I would like to see him on there. He's very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, we talked about the Last Jedi earlier, and, like, someone can bring it up, but have you been to a channel called The Right Opinion?
I don't think so.
Well, actually, I recently, like, discovered his channel by being promoted by another guy called I Hate Everything, and of course he actually, like, he did an interesting analysis about Star Wars, like, The Right Opinion. He did an interesting analysis about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and of course it's kind of like a sort of response to, like, Stardom videos, saying, of course, like, he kind of, like, and also based on what he started from him watching the movie himself, as well as fan reception, that mostly, like, to him it seemed like all this, like, SJW feminist agenda, the claim of that comes less to do with what is actually in the movie, but more with, like, feminists being excited about it. and people reacting to that. Like, maybe I'll just try to like find this video, like his video, like maybe post it in Discord, and you can take a look. Like,
Sure, go for it. Yeah, that might be interesting to see.
yeah, I actually seen The Last Jedi and myself, and I did enjoy it. Though there are a few flaws on it, but I think like his analysis saying that this claim of being like feminist propaganda is like more to do with like third wave feminists being overly enthusiastic about it, and people just reacting to that. Like hardly anything directly in the movie that's that apparent. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know for sure. I haven't actually seen the movie myself, but based on what I
you have Admiral Gender Studies and her needless suicide attack.
and apparently Leia is able to now fly through space like Superman or something.
Well, it's always known that Princess Leia is four senses, so I guess like if they at some point we might have to like see actually more force power manifest aside from her sensing like when Luke is in danger. Like,
yeah. Well, no, she definitely has always been force sensitive because apparently the force is strong in their family. But it's really strange, I think, for her to just suddenly be flying through space like she doesn't need any oxygen or anything like that. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking like maybe because like maybe it's some kind of automatic survival response. Like, you know, like how you hear stories about like people like gaining like super strength when they are in peril or under a lot of stress due to like adrenaline. Like maybe the force in a way works that way. Like maybe the midichlorians are kind of like adrenaline that when you're in peril, it gives you some kind of like emergency boost to help you survive.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, but I posted it in the atrium, like.
Okay, I'll check that out later.
Yeah, like, but basically I'm thinking like most of like this whole like feminist propaganda stuff is mostly like people reacting to other people's reactions instead of the movie. Like really, like the only thing I can probably say like feminist propaganda is the fact that they have like prominent women characters, which that doesn't really prove anything alone. And of course, like maybe
they were both terribly written.
There's a lot of talk about how Rey is a Mary Sue because she's just basically untrained and yet able to do everything and anything.
Well, I guess like maybe I go to how you define a Mary Sue. Like, because see, if we define a Mary Sue as an overly perfect character, then that term can be applied to a lot of characters, like Superman, like for example, and
right.
So you could use Force persuasion without any training. Come on, how's that not bullshit?
Like, and of course, and also like I think like if you go like I think like if you're going to call someone Mary Sue, it should be like reserved to like not just like overly perfect characters, but overly perfect characters that are clearly based on the people who created them. For example, Wesley Crusher.
Oh my.
I know, like, see, like look, just like Gene Roddenberry.
I know his middle name is Wesley, Eugene Wesley Roddenberry. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Wesley Crusher is a soy boy.
He was a self-insert. That's what he was.
I know, like, I'm thinking, like, I gotta say, like, maybe, like, Mary Sue is not so much I'm thinking, like, maybe Rey is not as much a Mary Sue when compared to, like, Wesley Crusher.
Well, if you take that view that a Mary Sue is someone the author has based on him or herself, yeah, maybe not. But in terms of her being a special snowflake who can do pretty much anything without any kind of struggle, without any kind of training, she's just like the perfect character with no kind of, I mean, where the fuck did she even come from, right? She has no training, she has no struggle, she has no quest, she's just there and she's automatically able to do anything imaginable. It's not even,
Well,
and you know, I don't like to use the term realism when I talk about fantasy or science fiction or science fantasy movies or books or games or whatever. But, you know, it beggars belief. How in the fuck could she possibly be able to do any of this without any kind of training, without any kind of experience, without any kind of quest? I mean, you know, if you've read Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, you're talking about there are certain elements along the journey, along the quest that have to be there, and there are none of those in her story. She's just immediately, automatically, innately perfect for whatever reason, and there's no explanation for it.
well, actually, like that kind of like leads like an observation made like about the Star Wars series as a whole. Like let's go back to like a New Hope episode 4, which is the first movie that came out. Like, see, like with Luke, like with Luke Skywalker, like you really like at that moment when you first saw it without seeing any of the other movies, like you really don't know much about him at all, and and of course, like if you look at like see like aside from like maybe just talking with Obi-Wan for a few days and give him a few basic lessons, like he never really had much force training, but then like if you look at the scene where he blows up the Death Star, like it trying to imply that he actually, like Luke Skywalker, actually used the Force.
Yeah,
to
but
actually
he
guide
did.
him.
But he did have some training, at least, some training. And what about Rey? Where did she come from? I mean, she just comes out of nowhere, and she's automatically able to do everything that you could possibly think of without any kind of history, without any kind of struggle, without any kind of quest, without any kind of training. She's just like this perfect being, and there's no explanation for it.
I know, but actually that's going to get to my part, which is probably one of the reasons why main people don't like the prequels, because because see, like if you go to like episode 1, The Phantom Menace, like they turned out like they actually revealed like to be trained as a Jedi have extremely high requirements. Like for one thing, like you're supposed to start your training when you're barely out of diapers.
Yeah.
Yes, and they also like see like I think one of the plot points of why the Jedi Council didn't want to train Anakin is because he was too old, and at the time he was just like a little soft-nosed kid, like.
Yeah.
And of course, when you look at it, like, see, they kind of like they put so much things in there, like to actually use the Force properly in any proper manner. The prequels kind of sound like it requires like so many years of rigorous training instead of like a few days talking to an old guy and a few days like trying to like float rocks on Dagobah, like.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a reason why like. Well, one reason why the prequels suck is because they seem to make the other movies suck.
Yeah.
See the prequels. When you watch the prequels, like it kind of like the prequels that made Luke Skywalker as much of a mercenary as Rey is. Like when you think about it.
Oh, no, because he did at least have some training. I mean, and there was a struggle involved in his journey. The hero's journey involves this. These trials along the way and so forth. I mean, so you get him thrown into the belly of the beast when they're in the trash compactor. You do have the typical hero's journey for Luke, and this is one of the things that George Lucas actually based Star Wars on. He based it on the writings of Joseph Campbell, who was the cultural anthropologist, comparative mythologist who wrote the book Hero with 1,000 Faces. So, I mean, it's all very neo-Jungian. I mean, I think that book probably was still very Jungian, but as time went on and Campbell became more popular, he started moving in a new direction that I would call neo-Jungian. And his take was to kind of gloss over all the distinctions and the differences between these various religions and sacred traditions and mythologies to emphasize a point that all of them are the same, and that's not really true. I understand his motivation behind that was to kind of try to discourage sectarian and religious violence. And that's a noble goal, but I think that could have been accomplished in another manner. Now you've got Jordan Peterson, who's also a neo-Jungian, and he seems to me, and I don't know how familiar he is with Campbell, but it seems to me like he's basically reacting to Campbell, and instead of saying all religions are the same, he's trying to promote Christianity as the height of Jungian archetypal manifestation. I think that both of them are wrong. I think Gene Roddenberry had it right when he talked about how it's okay to be different, we need to learn how to take delight in our differences and not be afraid of them, not simply tolerate, but to value these differences among us, because there's nothing wrong with having a different opinion about things that are, what we might call the great mystery. None of us is really in a position to presume to declare definitively once and for all that which is infinite. You can't define the infinite,
Yeah. Like a lot of people claim that Gene Roddenberry is anti-religion, but when I actually see some of the stuff, I got the impression that he's more of an agnostic.
Yeah, I think Roddenberry was more of a humanist as far as his basic philosophy goes. And yeah, I'm not sure about his views on theism. And I mean, when we talk about theism in philosophy of religion, we're often talking about what's known as traditional theism, which is basically the dogmas of Christianity and Judaism and Islam. And they can be summed up with this idea that there is one deity who is perfectly ethically good, who is omniscient, who is omnipotent. And there are a lot of people who, if they don't agree with traditional theism, they can be called atheists, but that doesn't mean that they're atheists in the usual sense of the word. I'm not a traditional theist. I disagree with quite a lot of traditional theism, but I'm not an atheist in the more common use of the term, in the sense that I do believe that there are deities, but I don't accept the Abrahamic tradition views on the matter. Get off of me, cat. I have a cat trying to crawl all over me. Get off! You're fucking up my shit.
Yeah. Actually, I remember when my cat was alive, she usually tried to get my attention by walking over my keyboard.
This one will just come and crawl all over me, especially if I start singing. She loves music. She has got good taste in music too, and if I'm talking to someone, like I'm talking to Matt here on Discord, or I'm, on the phone, or talking on a live stream, or recording a video, she thinks that she's got to come and crawl all over me. And it's really quite annoying. Get off of me and stay off. I'm going to spray you with this water bottle. I'm going to blow in your face. Go on over there.
Actually, sorry, go ahead,
I'm not talking, I'm just talking to her. I'm saying, go away.
Yeah, I kind of understand. Still, I miss my cat so bad. Actually, but go back to about Star Wars, and also the subject of a greater force guiding the universe. Actually, I found a video from a YouTuber called the Carlin Brothers that actually analyzed The Last Jedi and how it might actually reveal some things about the nature of the Force. I guess maybe I'll post it in the atrium for you maybe can watch later, but basically it's saying that basically the Force is actually the reason why some of these people seem to have powers out of nowhere, because the Force is kind of a godlike intelligence that is guiding everything, and it has some kind of plan,
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
in other words, they played KOTOR too.
But basically, there's kind of been the question, do the characters we've seen, do they really have any free will at all, or is it just like the Force just compelling them to push into some kind of destiny, which does kind of explain like why some characters seem to have like Force powers out nowhere without any known formal training, like because maybe the Force wills it, but.
Well, in the I think it's the expanded universe, which may or may not be canon, depending on what day of the week it is. There is this concept of, what do they call them, midichlorians?
That's canon, sadly.
These kind of microscopic critters, which get into people and are the Force, which is really strange. I don't know, because I don't think that was George Lucas's original intention. When he talked about the Force, it seemed like he was talking more about something akin to prana or chi, ki, ji, whatever you want to call it, the kind of concept that they have in the East, in India and China, Japan, of this kind of force that comes from the breath.
A life force, like some kind of like more like in this line of mysticism. And see, like one of the complaints about the midichlorians is that they seem to like seem to like diminish the magic and mysticism of the Force. Like
right. That was the thing that there was someone recently on Twitter, and I don't remember who now, had posted something about how no director's cut has been an improvement on the original movie, and I was like, what about Highlander 2? Because Highlander 2, a lot of the fans of Highlander just couldn't stand Highlander 2 because it made the Immortals, be some group of aliens who had come to this planet, and so when the director's cut came out, he removed all reference to the alien world and the alien origin of the Highlanders or the Immortals or whatever. And they were just still, there's no explanation. It's still a mystery, right? So I thought that was a much better version of that movie than the original. The director's cut, in that case at least, was much, much superior to the original movie.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I think that this explanation of the Force as having something to do with microscopic creatures is, as you say, it kind of takes away from the mystical and the mysterious element involved in the concept of the Force.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, maybe the attempt from J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson was actually to try to make the Force mystical again, if there is for example, maybe trying to say that there's some kind of godlike intelligence behind it that controls everything.
Well, yeah, that could definitely be the case. I'm not sure.
I think the thing is that the Force. I think I've actually posted both videos in the atrium on their Discord, and if you want to see them later, just take a look. But I think one of the things is that the Force automatically tries to balance things out, because the reason why the dark side won in the prequel trilogy is because the light is more prominent, and the reason why the light side won in the original trilogy is because the dark side was more prominent.
Mm-hmm. Except if you actually read Lucas's notes on the Force, the dark side was supposed to be a cancer, and the light side was basically the normal working body. So by destroying both the Sith users, who were basically helping that cancer grow and spread throughout the galaxy, they had to be removed. All of them. There was no, there has to be this perfect balance between Jedi and Sith. No, you get rid of them.
Well, at the end of the original third movie, which was the sixth chapter in the story or whatever, It seems like Luke is talking about how the Force is something that the Jedi Order and all that stuff needs to be done away with, and instead of focusing on things like that, they should focus on interpersonal relationships.
And that is why I liked Rogue One.
Yeah. But yeah, I think maybe with someone's idea and imagination, it does evolve over time. Like,
yeah, that's true.
though, like I'm thinking they could the idea of the dark side being a sickness. Like when you think about it, is anyone's body 100% healthy?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know.
I'm thinking about a normal human body.
Maybe when you first come out of the womb, there might be someone who has perfect health, but after they've been out for a little while, they start getting exposed to pathogens and so forth.
Maybe if you're going to use the human body in the health analogy, maybe the dark side is something that is there and just simply won't go away. So we should maybe find a way the best way to actually manage with it.
Well, again, it goes back to what Yoda was saying when Luke asked, "Is the dark side stronger?" Yoda's like, "No, but tempting, easier."
Mm-hmm.
It's more tempting. Yeah. It's a lot more easier.
Yeah.
So in that case, you'll never get rid of the dark side.
Yeah, it's just something that's there, and you might have to just recognize what it is, and learn to live with it. But yeah, I'm thinking the whole thing about the idea of the balance between the light and the dark side, that was actually introduced in the prequel trilogy, which kind of gave me the impression that maybe if the Coen Brothers are correct, that might be something that George Lucas had in mind for a while, because the prophecy of the Chosen One, say bring balance to the Force, of course, maybe I think Yoda kind of foreshadowed this, that maybe it was a misinterpretation, meaning that maybe the balance of the Force doesn't mean that the light side is going to win. Which, when you look at the conclusion of the prequel trilogy, that pretty much seems to be the case if you actually believe that Anakin Skywalker is the Chosen One.
Well, to be fair, it never said how the light side would win.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm thinking when you think about maybe when you say balance, it actually means maybe a balance between the light and the dark, because the prequel, the dark side one, because the light was more powerful, and the light side one in the original trilogy because the dark side was more powerful. That's pretty much what the Coen Brothers are trying to make the case for.
I don't know that it's possible to have a balance between polar opposites, which is what it seems to be in the Star Wars universe. You have the Jedi who are completely positive, completely good, and you have the Sith who are completely negative, completely bad or evil. I don't think that polar opposites like that can balance. Now, if you talk about complementary opposites like justice and mercy, yeah, sure. Male and female, sure. But something that's matter and antimatter, no, they come together and they destroy themselves and everything around them. So
yeah.
I don't know about balance in that kind of idea.
Actually, when you think about actually it just came up with just part of another observation. If we look at what's happening so far in this new trilogy, see both the good guys and bad guys, they're pretty much almost on even field. Both have both the First Order and the Resistance, they have no no formal government backing them up because both were destroyed. That's even though at the end of The Force Awakens it does seem grim for the Resistance, it still implies that maybe there'll be a resurgence. But I'm thinking if the common bars are correct, and maybe what we're going to see in the conclusion is some form of like stalemate.
Well, yeah, that could be possible, and it would certainly leave room for somebody to come along later and develop the story further.
Yeah, like I think like maybe like they definitely Disney is definitely planning to make more Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Even after the trilogy, so I guess like maybe if that's the case, then maybe like the Force trying to balance itself out is a device that continue like an endless story, like.
Maybe so. I mean, certainly if they have one side or the other win, then that would be the end of the story. There would be nothing ever possible in the future. And I mean, you know, a lot of the stuff coming out of Hollywood more recently has been basically rehashing old stuff. Like they'll take a television series from the 60s or the 70s and they'll make a 2-hour movie that's basically just an extended length episode of that show. And a lot of movies that have been made in the past have been remade recently. And I don't know, I do like that to some extent, but at the same time I think, guys, do something original. You know, this has all been done before. I don't see a need. Some of these movies are classics, and I don't really see a need for them to be remade in any way. Now, then there are other movies that, yeah, okay, I can see there might be a reason to remake them because we got better special effects now and yada, yada, yada. But, you know, some of the older stuff, I mean, how are you going to improve on Cecil B. DeMille, for example, right? Who would want to remake a Sergio Leone movie? Sergio Leone was a brilliant filmmaker, and same goes for Cecil B. DeMille. Why would you want to remake those? Those are classic, iconic movies.
Yeah, like actually, I'm thinking like one thing I got one of the criticism I got about like constant remakes is that there's only anything really special for like people who haven't seen the original,
right, yeah.
See, like I actually recently, like not too long ago, I watched the remake of the Magnificent Seven, which actually, when you think about it, it's the original Magnificent Seven, kind of like it's sort of a remake of it itself, since it's based on the Seven Samurai, but they just changed a few things.
Right.
But the original one, but I'm thinking like, when you look at it, the visuals of it and the action were pretty good, but then again, for the story, but in regards to the story, the only people who would really get anything from it will be people who never seen the original.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some examples which I think were, you know, maybe not better than the original, but comparable. So, for example, The Manchurian Candidate, the original movie with Frank Sinatra, is an excellent movie, and then they've done a newer movie. I guess it was in the late 90s or maybe the first decade of this millennium. They did the version with Denzel Washington. It was a good movie too. I think those are both great movies. Then they tell a slightly different story in each case, because the newer one has to be updated for the times, because at that point in time there was no more Cold War, and now I know that we're trying, or not we, but certain people in government and in the media are trying to get another Cold War started, and I'm like, guys, no, I lived through the Cold War. It's not a good thing. Don't do it.
Yeah, like I actually like the idea of the Manchurian Candidate trying to like brainwash people. Like I guess like maybe adapt it to like some kind of like war and terror sort of plot, because of like maybe like the idea of like ideology, like brainwashing people to do harmful things from within. Like,
yeah,
I can probably imagine like them adapting like something like that to a war and terror scenario.
Yeah. That could actually they could. The Manchurian Candidate has a number of possibilities. It could be remade in various ways to apply to whatever the current situation is. But at the same time, some of these movies are remakes of remakes that aren't that old. You know, like, I mean, they're making movies now that are remakes of movies that were made in, like, the 90s, which themselves were remakes of movies from the 60s or the 50s. I think that's a bit too much. You know, I mean, the ones from the 90s are still, you know, maybe not completely up to date with the latest technology and special effects and so forth, but I don't see a need for them to be remade every 10 or 20 years. Maybe every 50 years, yeah, maybe I could see that. You know.
Like, I think like if you're going to like do a remake, then you have to like add something new to it. Like,
got to do a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, like I actually have a remake. Like, see, like that's probably like one of the main complaints about The Force Awakens, because the plot is way too similar to the original movie. Like,
Yeah, I've heard that too.
You know, like, see, like, I guess, like, maybe it's good for people who are really addicted to nostalgia, but, which is
probably the originals are for.
I know, like, but I think that's part of the reason why I like The Force Awakens. I mean, The Last Jedi, because it was, like, it did try to be different.
Yeah.
Though there are some, like, plot similarities with The Empire Strikes Back, there are still enough differences for it could be for it's possible for it to stand on its own.
I don't know. I haven't seen any of the prequel movies. I've only seen the original trilogy for Star Wars. And one of the reasons for that is because I've always been more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan. To me, Star Wars is a lot of neo-Jungian archetypalism mixed with some pop psychology and framed in a great light show. So, I mean, get high, go watch it, cool. You know, but as far as challenging you to think, no. Star Trek, that's what you do if you want to have something that is a commentary on social situations at the moment. Something that will encourage you to think about things that exist in society and maybe how they could be improved and stuff like that. You don't get that with Star Wars. With Star Wars, you get basically, like I said, a pop psychology mixed with Jungian or neo-Jungian archetypal. Well, no, I think it was Jungian with, I mean, it's a bit of both, because Campbell, by that point in time, had already started his own kind of neo-Jungian journey. But certainly the Hero with 1,000 Faces is more Jungian than neo-Jungian. And that was one of the primary inspirations for George Lucas in making the original trilogy. So I think there's a bit of both Jungian and neo-Jungian influence there. There's certainly a lot of pop psychology, but for the most part, it's like an action thing with a lot of, you know, lightsabers and ships in space firing laser weapons at each other and stuff like that. So it's a good light show. It's entertaining for what it is, but it's not something that challenges you to think and puts you in a position where you kind of have to think about social matters and the like.
That's it was never made to. That all that was put in much later. I mean, A New Hope is basically the farm boy turns into the White Knight who rescues the princess with the dashing rogue, the old mentor,
right,
to save the princess from the Black Knight's evil castle of doom.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Like, actually, I think that was actually, like, that story was actually an adaptation of another old Japanese movie called The Dark Tower. I think that was called The Dark Tower, or it might be something else, but...
The Dark Tower, is that the one with the mystics and the skitsis?
I think it was an old Japanese movie. It might be called... I'm not sure. I think it could be like The Black Tower, but basically the plot build is this young farm boy goes on a quest with a guy with a shady past to come up relief, and this old retired samurai to rescue a princess from this dark lord.
Huh. Well, see, the thing is, all of those stories are based on the ideas of Jungian archetypalism, And one of the best presentations of Jungian archetypalism is The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, where he goes and he talks about the hero's journey from the beginning, where the hero is basically a nobody, a peasant, a farmer, a rancher, somebody who is just a common person. And he meets a group of adventurers and a wise old man or a wise woman. He learns from the wise person. They go off on their adventures. The wise person shows up occasionally throughout the event. I mean, you can see it in The Hobbit, for example, which is kind of a quest. And if you take it on into The Lord of the Rings, you've got like a reverse quest where you're trying to get rid of something instead of get something, right? You're trying to get rid of the ring, the one ring. But it still has all the elements of quest, except at the end you don't come back with the great treasure. You've gotten rid of the great treasure because the great treasure was corrupt.
Yeah.
The only things lacking from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are the hero gets the girl. You don't have Bilbo finding a wife. You don't have Frodo finding a wife. They both go off to, what is it, Aman, the land of the blessed or whatever in the Western Sea, where the Valar and Maiar live.
Neither did like Luke Skywalker, but that was because it turns out the girl happens to be his sister.
Yeah, and Han gets the girl.
Yeah, like I think in like Lord of the Rings, I think it's actually like the people around Frodo actually gets the girl, like.
I don't know.
Like I think like when they went back to the Shire, it was his friend Samwise got married.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like pretty much like everyone but the hero gets the girl in this case, like.
Yeah.
Which actually is part of the reason why I don't think like in the next movie Rey is going to end up with anybody, like. I don't think so, because like if she's supposed to be like that kind of archetype of a hero like Luke Skywalker, she'll probably won't end up with any romantic interest at all. Like,
well, it could go either way, honestly, and it depends on, I guess, J.J. Abrams is still going to be the primary director and so forth. So I don't know. We will have to wait and see. But anyway, we've been going now for over 3 hours, and I'm hungry, so I'm going to get something to eat. So I'm going to go ahead and call a close to the stream. Thank you all for joining me in the stream, and thank you all who watched the stream out there. So until next time, have fun, but stay safe.
Have a good night.